The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Remember this, when you're the greatest fighter in the world today, they got a name for you. They don't call you a great fighter, they call you Chael Sonnen. Beat me, if you can.
And after tonight, none of you in this ring will ever be the same again.
You're talking to the Rolex wearing, diamond ring wearing, kid stealing, woo, wheeling dealing, limousine riding, jet flying, son of a gun, and I'm having a hard time holding these alligators down. Woo!
I'm gonna drink a Coors Light. That's a Coors Light because Bud Light won't pay me nothing.
And I have in my cold beer. You have your cold beer? If not, you are fucking jabroni.
Wash it down with 1 beer, 2 beers, 3 beers, a shot of whiskey.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
The following announcement has been paid for by the New World Order.
Welcome to the FRB Show, and I am Front Row Brian. This is the debut show. It's been many years in the making. A lot of people have said, Brian, why don't you have a website? Why don't you have a podcast? Well, you know what? I was being lazy for a lot of years, and I decided to end that. So here's the podcast, the debut show, and I got Chael Sonnen, Alistair Overeem, and Bloodstain Lane on the debut show. I hope you guys enjoy it. Please send me any feedback to my Twitter account or my email, workshoot@yahoo.com. Good, bad, or indifferent, whatever you guys have for me. I'd like the feedback, and I really hope you enjoy it.
We're up when the rooster crows, clock in when the whistle blows, 8 hours ticking slow, and then tomorrow we'll do it all over again. I'm a member of a blue-collar crowd. They can never, no, they can't keep us down. If you gotta label me proud. I belong to the drinking class. Monday through Friday, man, we bust our backs. Well, if you're one of us, raise your glass. Well, I belong to the drinking class. We laugh, we cry, we love.
And with that, that's Lee Bryce, the drinking class. You're listening to the FRB Show. Many years in the making. And when I first started to formulate the ideas to make this a reality, I knew I needed to bring the heavy artillery from day one, and that's what I did. I have that for you. I made a call, and he's an ESPN analyst, a UFC legend, and when he's not slaying parasites and hypocrites on the mean streets of Westland, Oregon, he's a special advisor to the Nevada State Athletic Commission, the incomparable Chael Sonnen. What's up?
Tell him, man. Tell him like it is. That was beautiful. That was poetry.
The only man to go to a sentencing hearing and get a job offer.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that was an interesting. That wasn't a great day for me.
I know this has been a turbulent year for you, and I say that, and I've been through a few turbulent years with you. You know, going back to California and all of that. But this year, I think was the most interesting one. Do you think?
I'll tell you, it wasn't a wonderful day. I mean, I had a couple of them that I'd like a redo on. You know, if they could run it back, I think there's a few things I might have done differently in 2014.
Absolutely. But there is one thing that I know that is going to, well, I'll let you say it. It's a big announcement. It's something that you can't even put into words sometimes how excited you are about it. And so I'll just let you do it.
Well, I assume you're talking about Junior.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a boy. It's a boy, and you know they can do blood work now, very early on, and this is our not our first attempt, but the first one that's we've had this much luck with, I guess, is the way to put it. And yeah, man, yeah, you're right. It's exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know you'll be a great father, and you know, tell Brittany congratulations, and I think everything will go real smooth for you guys.
Oh, I definitely will tell her, man. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no problem, man. And you know, you just recently got hired at ESPN, and it kind of came out of left field because you know, maybe they thought people thought that they couldn't hire you because of what happened, with the random drug test. Tell us a little bit about how that opportunity presented itself, and how did you get the gig?
I had started at ESPN. They used to have a show called MMA Live. In fact, they still have it, but now it's regulated to the internet. It used to be actually on ESPN. It was the best MMA show ever. And in fairness, it was also the only MMA show ever. It's the only MMA show that was on television. So it was a big deal. In that space, a lot of people watched it. But, at ESPN, it's such a machine of sports. And it starts with football, and then goes to basketball, Major League Baseball, and then there's everything else. But there's football really, really stands out. So it was tough to get time. It was tough to get airtime on ESPN, and that's changing. As the sport's grown and the industry's grown, they're coming back to it. So, that opportunity opened up, and I think there's going to be more spots. I think it's only going to grow from here. They don't have a complete MMA show. They have something called Sports Center, and they just throw a whole collage of everything going on in sport in there at once, and that's where we're at right now. Blurbs here and there. And I think that's going to change, man. I think they're not going to have a full show like they used to have with MMA Live. So, how frequent can the fans expect to see you on SportsCenter or ESPN? Every week. We'll be doing weekly stuff, but again, ESPN's so big. I believe there's 3 channels. I think there's ESPN, and there's ESPN2, ESPN3. There may be more than that. I know they have like a Deportes, the Spanish channels, and I'm just talking on my television. I can get at least three ESPN channels, and then you've got the internet. And they still do, again, that MMA Live show that is online. So every week with that, but for sure with the pay-per-views. Every UFC pay-per-view, every major event, ESPN will have a presence.
Great. And, I guess the question begs, is ESPN a destination job, or is it a bridge to get back to Fox Sports 1 where, when people think about an analyst on Fox Sports 1, they think of Chael Sonnen. You were the original guy. You were the guy in UFC Tonight, with Kenny. And it was a house that you built, and it's home. At least from what I think. Now, is ESPN a destination, or is it a bridge to go back home?
I don't know that I've ever thought about it in those terms. I suppose if I had to choose one of the two, I would say it's a destination. I've got a contract with them. I'm very happy out there. Bristol's a long flight for me. If I was to say one thing that'd be a little different, I live in Oregon. I don't think there's any further part of the country you could get to than Bristol, Connecticut. Right. But man, it's great. If you want to be in sports, there is no number 2. There's nobody that's even close. With ESPN, the things you can learn in the, I got to get better as an analyst. It's kind of like being a fighter, man. I never felt complete. There was never ever a fight I went into where I was confident, or a training camp that I came out of and thought, man, I got this mastered. I was always trying to to get better every day. Everything needed improved. And the same thing goes with an analyst. If you want to do that, you want to be on TV, it's a competitive field, and you got to get good, and you got to learn and steal things from different people and keep your eyes open. I think that ESPN, there's some good mentors out there.
Oh, for sure. And, this new gig at ESPN, I saw Dana on Twitter, even though he blocked me years ago. I don't know, I have no idea why. But he congratulated you on this new position. So, has this affected... So obviously he's happy about it, but what's the relationship currently with Dana and Lorenzo Fertitta?
It's great. You got to understand, those guys weren't wrong. I was wrong. I was never mad in the least at anybody. There was things I would have done different and all of that stuff, but those guys are great. I'm not with them anymore. That's just the reality of the situation, but that doesn't mean they're not supportive. I've got many different relationships with Dana. I've got our business relationship, but I've also been with him for 10 years. So you form a friendship through there. And just because a business relationship ends doesn't mean the rest of your personal things do. And, he's good about that. He understood that. And he's the one that kind of explained that to me. But, the fact of the matter is, we're all in the same industry. Even if you're not with the same company, we're all in the same industry. Everybody listening to this, we're all in this thing together. We're all helping this thing grow in our own way together, whether it's just as fans or it's promoters, athletes, media members. So that those things still exist. Yeah, for sure. I could be wrong here, but I see Vanderlei is still has a promotional agreement, even though he's retired, the same as you. I would think that you might have a promotional agreement still intact with the UFC. Would that be accurate, or? Yeah, that's right. And I had multiple business relationships with the UFC in terms of contracts. Each television show is its own contract. Imaging rights, licensing rights, and then your fighter contract where you can compete and who your promoter is. Those contracts all still exist. The only one that was terminated was the television agreement.
Sure. So I guess the suspension was about 2 years from maybe June 5th or whenever they dragged you in there. And so, 2016, Chael Sonnen walks into the octagon to compete again. True or false?
I think it's false. I don't have any interest in doing it. When I retired, I meant it, and being suspended was kind of a stamp on what was already done. And I don't think I would go. I don't think I would go back. I don't think I have an interest in it, and I don't know who I would fight. If I went back, I don't know. I had a big rival with Vanderlei. He's gone. And 2 years from now, the landscape changes so fast. It's very hard to imagine who will even be there in 2 years. As good and young and undefeated and dominant and all those things that say Chris Weidman is, man, there's no telling if he'll be champ or even be in the top 5 in 2 years. 2 years is a long, long time in MMA terms. Yes, I don't think that's right. When I retired, I meant it. And I've always been annoyed with guys that retire and then come back or use retirement as a promotional tool. I've always found that annoying. And I think that'd be annoying if I did it too.
Yeah, I hear you on that, but there's also something cool to a comeback. And when Randy came back in 2007, it was a special time. It was like, this old man's going to come back, and he's coming off getting knocked out by Chuck, and what does he think is going to be different this time? And to me, that was one of the high points. And I know you're a Randy guy, and Randy and Dan and Matt are your mentors.
Yeah, and Randy came back successfully, and that's what's so rare. But you see other guys do it, and it's a work. I remember when Floyd Mayweather retired. And, he could have been obvious. It was like a little kid. saying he's not going to do something just to get everybody to beg him to do it. The time that he said he was retired, it was obvious that he just needed a compliment. And someone would go, "Oh no, Floyd, you got plenty of time left. Oh, you're still young. You're the best." And you see these adults do that. It just always struck me as weird. Now, if a guy means it, if a guy really steps away, I think when Randy retired, it was legitimate. And as soon as he did it, he missed it. I think St. Pierre's going through that. Whether St. Pierre comes back or not, I think that he is second-guessing whether he ever should have left in the first place and think, I got a little bit of time. Well, you're only alive for so many years. We only have so much time on this earth. And, if you find something you like, you want to do it as long as you can. You always have goals of leaving on top, but it's very rare, man. Brian, you're not going to meet very many fighters in your whole life, or ex-fighters, that are happy about their careers. It doesn't happen very often where a guy leaves the sport and looks back positively, because we generally will stay in there too long, and the only memories that the guys have is their last one. That's the one they take with them, and generally the last one just doesn't go well. If it does, perhaps you retire too soon. That's the psychology that somebody would go through, or any human.
Yeah,
You're talking about fighters right now, but any human. You don't want to leave too early, and you don't want to stay too long. It's a hard balance.
I hear you on that, and I was out in LA with you when you competed at Metamoris, and I think you said to me, I've had a great career, and I agreed with you. You fought all the best guys in the world in every promotion known to man. So what are some of the proudest moments of your career, off the top of your head, one or two or whatever?
Yeah, one of my proudest moments in wrestling, the NCAA tournament, they have what they call All-Americans, and it's a big deal. You only get 4 shots at it. And your eligibility's up. So it makes it tough to do. It makes it a little more prestigious. And it was something I always wanted to do my whole life. I never really thought of being a national champion. I thought of being an All-American. I think if I could redo it, I would have set higher goals. But I still remember that match. It was in 1998. I remember where we were, the arena, what mat we were on, the opponent, the whole bit. That was a pretty exciting time. And, I transitioned to MMA. It was always just one fight at a time and let the career take care of itself. I had to fight the number one guy in the world a bunch of times. I fought Jeremy Horn when he was ranked number 1. Repeatedly, Paulo Fila was ranked number 1. Anderson was ranked number 1. Jon Jones. And the number 2 guy I had to fight a whole bunch of times. Paulo Fila slipped to number 2, and I had to fight him. I had to fight Nate Marquardt and Yushin Okami, and it just kept coming up. It was just, I kind of took the fights that nobody else would, but it gave me an opportunity that I wouldn't have had otherwise. I couldn't get in the UFC. I couldn't get that kind of attention. And, willingness to compete, it really helped me. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of how that went. I'm proud of always stepping up. There's one thing that I hate, which is bullies. And I feel like bullies only pick on the people they know they can. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to pick on people that I knew I could beat. I had to have a policy that it was open to all comers. And as soon as there was a guy that I wasn't willing to fight, then I won't fight any of them. I'm not going to go pick on, the low-hanging fruit and duck behind other guys. So I'm proud of that.
Yeah, well, you should be. And I think we had that conversation when we were watching the Hopkins fight a few weeks ago. We have this, for everybody else, Chael and I have this friend, Darren. And Darren's a tough guy, but he'll never pick on anybody he knows he can beat up. He'll only pick on guys where it's questionable. And I was like, that guy, he's a little crazy, but it makes sense. Why pick on the guys you know you can beat?
Yeah, well, it's just not a good habit to be in. It's what a jerk does. You're a bully, like I said earlier. You don't want to do that, and you see it at all levels. We see it at all levels of combat, sport, life. The guy in the office, and it just happens all the time. I think it's unpleasant, and I think one way to just make sure you're not a bully, I think it is the one litmus test you can give yourself is will I fight anybody? And if the answer is no, some guy's too tough, I just won't get in there with him, then you're a bully. That's what it is. Wear your badge.
And you summed it up pretty well. You said this line a few times. You said, "I'll fight any man God ever made," and that's true. And that's not a gimmick. That I can tell people, even private conversations. Like, you wanted to fight Daniel Cormier. I don't think I'm giving away anything, but I think that got out in the news. But I was talking to you. You were in Brazil, and I told you that Rashad is out, and you say, "I want to fight Cormier. He's my friend, but he's a badass. I want in there with him. I'll get to Vegas on Thursday. I'll weigh in on Friday, and I'll fight him on Saturday." I was like, "Are you nuts? Are you crazy?" And the same thing with Shogun in Canada.
Yeah, and I thought I was going to have that Cormier fight. I had a few things going for me right then. I was on the set of The Ultimate Fighter in Brazil. And, that's really hard work and all those things, but at the end of the day, that's a training camp. That's what they're filming. It's 2 workouts a day in a world-class facility with the greatest coaches and the guys on the show, which are the greatest workout partners you could imagine. And that's what I had. So I was training twice a day every day, even though we were filming that show. That's what we were doing. I had just lost a fight to Rashad. And, that's another thing that motivates you when you underperform. I think if I was being objective, if I fought Rashad 10 times, I'm not positive I ever beat him. The style matchup's just hard. He's an excellent fighter, all of that stuff. But I know I can compete with him. I could go hard with him, have a good close match, and I got mauled when I fought him. And it's just hard. But that's a motivator. That doesn't, it didn't scare me away from competition. It made me think, God, I got to get in there again. I want back in there. I was in great shape. This Cormier opportunity came up. I thought we were going to get that. I remember talking to you about it. I think you're the one that told me. I was in Brazil, and I thought that was going to happen because I didn't think anyone else would do it. Pat Cummins, I was pretty close to right. They had to bring in Pat Cummins, a guy that had never fought in the UFC before, and it provided an opportunity. And now Pat Cummins hasn't lost another fight in the UFC. But you still got all these guys everywhere that say they'll do anything to be in there, anything to be part of it, and they will. They'll do anything but fight.
Yeah. And, you mentioned about, being an All-American, University of Oregon. And, a lot of people don't know that you actually started your collegiate career at BYU because, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, you wanted to go there because Mark Schultz was the head coach and there was a Gracie school there and Schultz had been trained by Pedro Sauer. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. Uh-huh.
And so Tank Abbott would come by campus, would come in the room and with you guys?
Yeah, all of that's right. I went there. Mark Schultz, wrestling legend, Olympic champ, couple-time world champ. He took over the program. And in addition, and this is in 1995 when I'm coming out of high school. In addition, there was only 6 Gracie gyms in the whole country, and I wanted to be in the UFC. Even way back then, before Zoof owned it, before anybody really knew. I remember having to explain to people what UFC stood for back then, but I wanted to do it. I wanted to be in, and there was a Pedro Sauer had a gym 40 minutes from the BYU campus that was Gracie certified. And this is back when Hoist is winning all these tournaments and everything. So at any rate, that was the draw. I ended up out there at BYU. And you're right about Tank Abbott. He trained for the Ultimate. In 1996 was it the 95? You know what, it was the 95 one. It was the first Ultimate they ever had. Okay. And he was expected to meet Dan Severn in the second round, in the semifinals of the tournament, and he did. But at any rate, he had projected that's who he would have. Excuse me, and he came out and he trained in the BYU room with us. Trained hard. He was a hard worker.
Wow, yeah. And have you had the opportunity to see Foxcatcher or read the book?
No. Now, I know about that. I lived through that. Because, again, not only was I coached by Mark Schultz, but when I transferred, BYU dropped their program. And I transferred to the University of Oregon. But Dave Schultz was shot in 1996. I left very early 1996. I left BYU at the very end of 1995. Only a couple of months 40, 45 days before this happened. So I was, I saw all of those things. The wrestling community is tiny here. It's just so small. But it was a lot bigger back then. And the reason I don't mean that by numbers, I just mean the internet presence wasn't around. There was no Twitter, no MySpace, no Facebook, no YouTube. It was a little harder to get information. If you wanted to travel really quickly, there was no text messaging even, for example. If you wanted to travel quickly, you picked up the phone and you made a call. But now think of how many phone calls you have to make to get any information. The Twitter, you push one button, everybody sees it. So it was just a different deal back then. But I lived through that.
Yeah, so Dave was killed in January, I think. And then Mark competed at the UFC in Detroit, I think in May or June.
That sounds right, when he fought Gary Goodridge.
Yeah. And I know I had seen him on Facebook saying it was, the defining moment of his life because, he comes from a gymnastics background, and even with all the wrestling championships, the 3 national championships at Oklahoma, the 2 world championships, the Olympic gold, that his goal was always to be the best martial artist. He wanted to be a great martial artist. And he thought that he had proven, even more. I even remember him, posting something maybe a year or 2 ago when they were filming that he was upset that his fight versus Goodridge is not in the movie.
Yeah, I read that too, and that surprised me that he considered that his defining moment when he was an Olympic champion, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if from a sporting aspect he felt that what he had done in the octagon was competitively the toughest, or if he was talking about from the mental aspect of coming back from his brother's death. And I think he was like 39 years old when he did it as well. He hadn't competed since the 1998 or 1980 Olympic Games in Seoul. So I was surprised that he said that, because only because he had achieved so much. I wish he would have elaborated on that thought. But, he was one of those guys that everybody was telling him, you need to go fight in the UFC, you need to go fight in the UFC. And he just didn't do it. He was at a Mormon institution, a religious institution of BYU. It was frowned upon. The one time he did do it, they brought him in and said, if you go back, you're going to get fired. He did that same thing to Randy Couture. He wasn't at a religious organization. He was at Oregon State, and he did go do it. And they said, if you do it again, you're going to be fired, and he resigned. I think people were hoping that Schultz would do the same thing. They ended up dropping his program. He ended up doing it their way, and then he lost the program. I think he lost a little momentum there. Otherwise, he would have done it. And even at 39 years old, he'd have been a problem for anybody. I don't know if anybody would have beat him.
Yeah, I wonder if it's the one thing that he might have had over Dave. Because if you read some of the things he says, Dave wasn't just a brother. It was like he was some type of god to him. Like even more than a brother, just somebody that he looked up to.
That's the way I hear the story too. He was the quintessential big brother in all the stereotypical ways, and whatever Dave said went. Dave was a lot better. Dave was a lifelong wrestler. Mark wasn't. Mark didn't start, until he was 17 years old. And on paper, Mark was the more successful of the two, but not in Mark's eyes. Because he remembered all those beatings. He remembered growing up and having those beatings from his big brother, who also looked after him. So I think that's where all that comes from. I was a little young when that happened. Most of that was folklore to me. I just heard about it through other people. But, those guys are legendary, man. Their brothers are both Olympic champions. When does that happen? That's a tough household.
Yeah, and those 84 gold medals in L.A. were they said, they're not really gold medals because of the Soviet boycott. And then you can correct me because you know this stuff better than me, but I think Dave in 85 won a world championship and beat all of them.
It's just the opposite. It was Schultz. Mark won it in 1985. Now, here's an interesting story, though. And then we can move off of wrestling. I don't know how many people care about this, but for Dave Schultz, and you're right, in 1984, the games were in Los Angeles. The Soviet Union, which was known as the USSR back then, the Russians, were and still are the most dominant wrestling country, region on the planet, and they didn't show up. They boycotted the games. We boycotted them in 1980. They boycotted us in 1984. Terrible, terrible decision by their president then and by our president. But at any rate, this is the way it happened. So they both won the title. Dave gets on the mat about 5 weeks later. I think it was in France, and he meets up in the finals of a tournament with the Russian. And when Dave shook the Russian's hand, he said to him, "This is for the gold." And Dave lost 5-4.
Wow.
And Dave Schultz never once claimed to be an Olympic champion again. People said it about him. We're saying it about him now. But if Dave Schultz did a camp or a seminar or put on a clinic, he never advertised himself as Olympic champion after he lost that match.
Wow, that's a great story. I had no idea about that.
Yeah. So he's a man of his word. When he shook the guy's hand and said, "This is for the gold," he meant it, and he honored it.
One more wrestling question, because it's been on flowwrestling.org, which is a great website. If you're into wrestling, like to watch wrestling, would definitely recommend signing up for that website. But there was some talk about you possibly going to the U.S. Open or the World Team Trials for Greco, and possibly wrestling under your former coach Matt Lindland, who is the head Greco coach. Is there anything to it, or what?
Well, I can tell you two parts of this. Part one is I would really like to do it. This is a fantasy I have. I would like to do it. I'm up here in Oregon. We've got good wrestling just locally. We've got the top junior college team in the country. We've got a top 10 Division I team in the country right up the road. So there's an opportunity here to wrestle. The other side of it, along with that, is that I'm suspended. I can't go do MMA. I can't get a license right now. So there's an opportunity to go out and wrestle. The second part is I'm not going to use this as a media stunt, like Donald Trump running for president every 4 years just for attention, or Kurt Angle, who said he was going to come back to wrestling in 2012. Now, Kurt's earned the right to work the crowd and get his attention, but that's what he was doing. It was fake. And I don't want to do that, and I'm not going to do that. I'm just answering the question because you asked it. And I will tell you now, I really don't know. I'm not committed to this. I don't want, to say certain things and get headlines for it, but I don't see anything wrong with it either. I don't see anything wrong with, it's 2 years away. I don't see anything wrong with training every day for a couple of years and staying in shape and staying focused and having a goal. I don't see a downside to it.
Sure. And I would assume that you got, even with the stunt I pulled, I would assume you're welcome back at Metamoris.
Oh, at Metamoris, yeah, man, Metamoris was awesome, and you weren't there long enough to know that. But Metamoris was just a good time.
Do you want to tell them the story?
Yeah, so here's what happened.
So such an asshole, oh God. Go ahead.
You come in from North Carolina to support me at Metamoris. I'm going to wrestle this guy named Andre Gavone, and we're the main event. And so we get to Metamoris. We're staying at a hotel right up the road. We walk up to Metamoris from the hotel. We get there, and we're there about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It's very early. I think Metamoris went live at...
We're with Vinny, right?
4 o'clock. So, yeah, we're with Vinny.
Okay.
We're with Vinny, and we're with my coach, Fabiano Scherner. So we get to Metamoris, and the way it works is Metamoris takes place in a tent. And that's also where the competitors warm up. They warm up outside in tents. So we get to the tent, to the warm-up area, and Sage Gracie, who is Halleck's cousin, I thought it was his wife at the time, and it's either his sister or cousin. I could be wrong. It might be his sister. But at any rate, she comes out. She's one of the bosses. And she's done a great job. She's worked super hard, and we're there early. And we don't have a pass for you. Everybody's got a pass except for you. Because we snuck you in. You were like contraband. They only let, you came all the way out, thought we had an extra corner, found out we didn't, so we got there early enough, we just brought you in anyway. And we made it all the way to the tent. But then she came in and just said, hey, he doesn't have a pass. So I just came clean. I'm like, yeah, he doesn't. We snuck him in. He came in from North Carolina. I thought I'd have an extra pass. I haven't got him a ticket or anything. So She, in the meanwhile, goes to get you a ticket. You go absolutely crazy, feel insulted, and end up leaving. You end up leaving Metamoris, to which I'm apologizing to Sage. I'm like, well, you know, Brian's been drinking. He got up early today. Cut him a little slack.
I didn't say anything to Sage. I was respectful. I nodded at her.
That could be. That could be. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm just saying by the time she came back with a ticket, she and I left the tent to go get you a ticket. By the time we came back, you were gone. And I was texting you. I'm like, hey, come back. I got your ticket.
That is true.
That's the story. And you missed a great show. You missed a really great show. You came all the way in from North Carolina and you didn't even shoot the event.
Yeah, but you missed the punchline, buddy. Come on, man.
Okay, I left it out purposely. I didn't know you wanted me to tell. So when Sage comes in and gives Front Row Brian the boot, Front Row Brian responds with, "Doesn't she know who I am?" Now, in all my time of knowing you, I've never seen you pull that card. And that is an actual card because people do know who you are. I mean, you're considered an internet sensation. And, you know, when we go to events, we very seldomly get a bill. I mean, my buddy Reese goes out with you. If you guys go to the bar, if you go whatever, somebody usually just picks it up because they see you in there. And they're trying to stay on your good side. Reese said you guys were in Las Vegas one time. Not only the bill get picked up, but the Las Vegas fight shop sent over like a bunch of merchandise and T-shirts and hats for you. So
yeah, 2 Chris Weidman shirts and a bunch of other shit. It was like a couple $100.
So the point is, though, you for the first time in our relationship pull the "doesn't she know who I am" card. So I don't say anything. I just let it go. The next time I see Sage says to me, "I didn't know that was Front Row Brian." And I just remember thinking, like, "Oh my God, that worked!" He actually used that line, and it worked. And I was hearing say it. I remember texting you that. I'm like, "Hey man, she apologized. She wants you to come to the event. She wants you to come back." But you had it. You had been disrespected. Front Row Brian was out of there, man. What a jerk.
But let's just make it clear. I didn't say to Sage, "Do you know who I am?" I turned to you and Vinny and did that.
Yeah. You kind of like proclaimed it out loud to the room. It was just like, I think just Vinny and I and Fabio were in there. But you just kind of like said it to the air out loud, which is why I wasn't forced to respond. That's why I could just blow it off. But you know, it was funny. The very next, and then she turned and walked away. The very next time that I saw her opening line was, "I didn't know that was Front Row Brian." We were thinking, "Oh my God, I can't believe this guy's getting that kind of credit around here."
Wow. So let's settle this, because I had another guy. I had Josh Barnett tell me that I was the reason that you lost to Galvo because I was, causing heat in the back. He said that I was the distraction that made you lose.
Well, I like that argument. I think that the rear naked choke he put me in and attempted to squeeze my head off also had something to do with that outcome, but it's hard to say for sure which one was predominant.
So the heat might still be on me, is what you're saying.
The heat might still be on you. You talk about Josh Barnett, you're talking about one of the greatest heavyweights, one of the greatest just fighters of all time, but one of the greatest heavyweights ever, and I think he had one of his defining moments that night, even though it was Metamoris, even though it was submission only. I think his performance and what he did that night and who he did it against, being with 11 seconds, all this drama behind it, for when you sit down and you argue the best ever and why, I think that gets brought up. When people talk about Cormier and all the success he had, they always bring up two-time Olympian. And I think when you talk about Barnett, not only will you talk about what he did in the ring and in the cage, I think people bring that up. They'll bring up that submission win he had at Metamoris.
Yeah, and I hope for this little Twitter squabble not to continue, because I've always had respect for the guy. I'm a pro wrestling fan. I like that he's into it. He just came after me, and I just can't lay down and say pin me and pay me. You know, I'm not a jobber.
Sure.
You know, so I have to stand up for myself. But you know, I don't wish for that to continue at all. But because,
you guys both have
respect
something in common. You and Barnett have something in common, which is if someone comes after you, no matter who it is, you're coming back at them. It's the bully factor I talked about earlier. You know, Barnett's not a bully. He'll come after anybody. And it's the same with Front Row Brian. Front Row Brian will go after anybody that wants to step up to the plate. So, yeah, I mean, you guys butting heads and coming into a collision course online, I don't think should strike anybody as a surprise.
Yeah, it just seems natural. Our personalities don't mesh. Even though I've never met the guy, I would like to talk to him one of these days. Mostly about Billy Robinson, actually. That would be what I'd like to talk to him about.
Yeah, catch wrestling legend. You know, you like Barnett. Barnett's a rough guy. The way Barnett warms up and trains and drills, I mean, he's just a rough guy. You got to be a great big guy just to be his training partner.
Yeah,
you know, even when he's going slow.
I hated sending all those tweets, but man, like I said, I can't lay down. I got to fire back a little, even though I respect the guy and for a long time actually. But
no, I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll pass. But the other question, a lot of people that are interested, you know, with your career and what you're doing now, they're asking, what are you doing to help the Nevada State Athletic Commission? Because I joked before, you know, saying you're the only guy to go into a sentencing hearing and get a job offer. So you are an official employee of the Nevada State Athletic Commission in an advisory role. So tell us about that job. Are you having fun with it? Or?
Well, I can tell you this. Our hope is to be before them in early 2015 and just give a quick presentation. All they asked me to do, you know, it was pretty clear. It wasn't a big broad, you know, come help with whatever. They just said, how can you help us in the area of substance use to do our jobs better? That's it. In terms of educating fighters or educating them. And there is an answer to that. There is some stuff that gets missed and overlooked and is greatly misunderstood. And there's so much misinformation about that we do have a little presentation. And I've contacted them and we've asked to get on one of their dockets. I don't know that they have their dates set, and their dockets are very full. So when that will happen is up to them, but you know, that's really it. Until I can get before them or try to help, that's
yeah. I mean, I think that was smart of them to try to bring you on in an advisory role, because you wouldn't put anything in your body unless it was performance enhancing.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And you know, that term gets used, performance enhancing drug, PED, and it didn't used to be that way. It used to be steroids. That was the term.
That was the bad word.
And I grew up through that. You know, I grew up through the 80s in the steroid era, and that it changed. You know, steroid, everything gets called a steroid now. Anytime you fail a drug test, it gets called a steroid. But the reality of steroids is they're very rare. Not very many people use steroids. It's kind of, you know, an antiquated term. Now the term is performance enhancing. Well, that's a bit of a trick, because if you want to be a medicine, if you want to be on the shelf at a pharmacy, you have to enhance somebody. You can't make them worse. It's the number one rule of medicine. So when you say performance enhancing, you're talking about every medication ever created, and you're talking about the very first rule to be a medicine. And so it's tough. It's, you know, somebody asked me if I took a performance enhancer. Man, that's all I take. I would never take something if it wasn't helping my performance. So it's tough. It's tough to be open and honest about that, because, you know, it's a bad term.
Yeah, and, you know, I hate, this is like the third time today I've said it, but to steal from Chris Jericho, who I admire so much, the hypocrites and parasites out there that talk about the performance-enhancing drugs, that are so against them, but yet they've used them themselves. not to mention any names. But
and I'll tell you this though. Because you can use them. Like, take me for example. Everything that I was flagged for, I can absolutely take right now with no embarrassment, no problem. You know, I'm employed by ESPN, absolutely no problem. You have in Nevada what's known as a privileged license. If you fall subject to that, there's not very many part of the population out there, but if you are, special rules apply. Let me compare it to this for the listeners. Alcohol is perfectly legal in this country. Driving a car is perfectly legal in this country, but you can't combine the two. You can't drink alcohol and then go drive a car, and if you do, they will take your license. So the same thing went for me. I took perfectly legal medication, and they were performance enhancers. But because I had that license, it was against the rules, and that's the right call. I don't dispute that in the least. I don't offer a defense in the least. I was guilty at the end. I'm just attempting to explain or clarify it for people who will listen. There was a guy, many people, who have said, that I took illegal drugs or illegal steroids. And I thought, well, not for nothing here. No defense to me. I'm wrong. I'm guilty. All those things. But let's keep it within the box here. First off, none of them were steroids, and none of them were illegal.
Yeah.
And so, it is a little bit tough there. I've always looked down on the people that take drugs that aren't an enhancer. All the laws are changing. Federally, I'm in Oregon. We're a very blue state in this country, one of the blue states next to Massachusetts. Marijuana and all these things are becoming legal, and people are coming out and saying, well, it's not a performance enhancer. It's like, guys, you can't have it both ways. You cannot call marijuana a medicine and say it's not a performance enhancer. If it's a medicine, it has to enhance you. It has to. Whether that means it helps you sleep at night, acne medication, makes you look better, makes you feel, those are all enhancers.
Sure.
And so you can't have it both ways. And I got judged by a lot of people, and I'm going, wait a minute, I know you. You drink a bottle of wine every night, and I know you. You're a plot, and I know you, and you're taking. I'm going, yeah, I'm wrong. I'm for sure wrong. But I did feel it was a little weird to use your word, hypocrite. It's like, come on, guys, you're not fooling anybody either.
Yeah, I mean, in my research, I mean, what you got popped for, I mean, there's less than like 10 people on a planet of 7 billion people who have gotten popped for this. So I've come up with this this idea that somebody sold you out. I really believe it, because I don't know how the EPO and the growth, less than 10 people in the world ever out of 7 billion have tested positive for this. How does this happen?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if that's wrong. And, again, the one reason I hate talking about this is only because I don't want to water down the situation. I was wrong. I can't say that enough times. I'm totally wrong here. But if I just say I'm wrong and I'm shut up, then we don't have a conversation. So let me start with that, and then, to create a dialogue on it. I think you're right. I think I know, how that happened, and I don't know that matters one way or the other. But I don't know if anybody's tested positive for either of those substances, including me. In fact, the NFL just came out with a big thing, and I was on the phone with Dave Meltzer talking about this. The NFL just put a thing out. Their union said they would not allow the testing for growth hormone because nobody's ever tested positive for it, and therefore there is no good test for it. And so Meltzer called me. He goes, hey, they're saying that nobody's ever tested positive because I thought you tested positive. And it gets very confusing. The answer is no, I did not. I did not test positive for growth hormone or EPO. What they had was a test that said there was an abnormal assay for those substances.
Right.
And so we kind of said, well, what does that mean? This is either positive or negative. It either happened or it didn't, right? She's either pregnant or she's not. You can't be a little bit pregnant. So, at any rate, we never got total clarification on that. My management was seeking it before they got a hold of me. That's how it works. So I always say they called me. They don't call you. They call your management. When the managers called me, I just came clean. I just said, guys, taking all that stuff, man. You know, they changed the rule on me. I took all this stuff. I self-tested. I thought it was out of my system. If it's not, they went to a better level. I'm not gonna try to hide behind this or find a loophole. And most people do. If you fight it, you know, like international court, this has happened a lot with bicyclists. If they take it all the way to international court, I can't ever find a time where there's ever been a diagnostics test that convicted them. I believe every single person that's fought it got off. And because I don't think they have a positive test. I don't think that's true. If you talk to doctors or scientists or even in my situation, there wasn't one. If it exists, nobody's seen it. But
I've had
I
some
just came
people.
clean. It's like, guys, I don't even know how many different things I was taking. I mean, it doesn't work that way. I go to the doctor, I take everything they tell me to. I got a whole counter full of stuff. You know, it's like, hey, let's just stop right here. But I was just trying to tell them, it's like, guys, let's just stop right here. This is like a calculus class from high school. You don't have a test that I can't fail. And if you want to keep giving them to me, this stuff's in my... I don't know how long it stays. I thought it was already out. So you can test me 5 more times. I don't know when they're finally going to come back clean. I don't know. I thought we were already there. And apparently we're not. I don't know how much more open I can be about it. And whatever you want to do with that information, that's up to you. You're in an authoritative position. I'm going to go take a nap. But when it's over, let me know what you decide. And that's how it happens.
Now, the motivation, I mean, I don't know this, but I can only speculate. The motivation to take these substances would be to just get on an equal playing field with your opponent at UFC 175, Vitor Belfort.
You know, and I don't like that. That's definitely not my message. You know, I have no idea what I did is I went into a doctor. And I just said, you know, I told him how I feel. We did blood tests, and I got advice on what could help. It's then my job to go cross-reference that with the rules. I did, and I knew it was against the rules. And I just thought, well, I can have it out of my... I can do both. I can have my cake and eat it too. You know, I can do this treatment. I can get feeling better, can fix a couple of areas, and I can be cleared by fight time. And that is a really bad philosophy, but that was the one that I had. And, you know, whenever people ask me, you know, why did you do it, that's the one question I don't want to get asked. When I went before the commission, I didn't say very much. I just said I'm guilty. You got me. But one of my motivations was also because I didn't want them to ask me why. I don't want to break down medical information. I don't want to break down what I was going through. I don't want to have to provide evidence from doctors. I don't think that's anybody's business. And that can get very embarrassing as well.
Sure. Absolutely.
It's not someone's business what somebody else is doing or why. It's like, look, guys, here's your rules. I broke them. Let's go. Let's get on with it. But that was the one thing I didn't want to get asked. And I always get a little hesitant still. I try to be open on this topic and candid about it. It's been one of my ways of dealing with it, is to just discuss it for what it is. But the one question that I don't like is why. Because I just don't think it's anyone's business, man. Whatever I've got going on medically is up to me. Whatever your rules are, up to you. If they clash, you got to take me out of the situation. And that's what happened. And I don't resist it. That's the way the rules are. But, you know, you bring up my opponent, I don't know, I definitely don't agree with it the way you said it, but there was a fear there. You know, there was a fear when my opponent got changed. It changed in my stomach. I remember going, oh, well, that's not the guy I was expecting to fight. And that's just a reality. Whenever you get a call to fight, that's just the way it works. You never breathe a sigh of relief. You always have this feeling in the pit of your stomach where you hear this anxiety or a fear. And
it was either going to be Vitor or Anthony Johnson.
It was going to be Vitor or Anthony Johnson. Sure. It was supposed to be Vitor. I think it would have ended up being Anthony Johnson. Vitor ended up not ever getting a license until 4 or 5 months later. I was licensed. They thought they could get Vitor. So yeah, I think what you said is true. Anthony probably would have got thrown in, but at the time, at the day, it was supposed to be Vitor.
Gotcha. You know, I just wanted to get your thoughts. I don't know if you had the opportunity to see the new Bellator, as they're calling it, when Tito fought Bonner, whom I know that Bonner. Did you get an opportunity to see it? What did you think of the production? Does it interest you?
I saw it. I did see it. I was at ESPN, and they covered it very briefly. The ESPN didn't, and still doesn't, just cover UFC. Take Fox, they're a UFC product. ESPN is an MMA product. And if they find a fight is big enough or media worthy enough, they will cover it. In that case, they did. We did actually discuss Barnett and Pico on the air. But to your question, the room that I watched in at ESPN, we went in a little room. The boss out there, Glenn, went over to Wild Wings, Buffalo Wild Wings, brought a whole bunch of wings, and we sat around and had a great time. They ate the wings and drank some soda and watched the fights. But what they did at ESPN, they had two TVs side by side. It was actually three of them, side by side by side. They had a replay of the Klitschko fight that was earlier in that day. They had the UFC, and they had that Bellator, all side by side by side. So if you're a fight fan, which I am, it was covered. You got your wings, you got some buddies around you, you've got the three fights going on. So totally covered, and I thought they did a very good job. There was a lot of fans dressed as empty seats. I know they're working to change that, but as far as your question on the production value, I was entertained. I would not do the ramp. The ramp is a proven failure. It's a absolute proven failure in North America. And it's a failure because of the fighter. A fighter, when he walks in and you put him on a ramp, so you're putting him above everybody, much like a courtroom. The judge will always set up higher than the people before him. The president, when he goes to speak, will stand at a podium for a reason. There's a psychological relevance to height. They put a ramp out there to gain the psychological advantage. And then the fighters bend it down and shake people's hands on their way in, which looks terrible. It looks ridiculous, and the fighter can't resist doing it. As bad as it looks on television, and as many times as a director, you encourage them not to do it. A fighter cannot stand to offend somebody, and he's worried that this drunken stranger who has a hand extended will then somehow boo him. It looks terrible. You need to either walk in with, and we used to do it in the UFC. The UFC used to do pyro and a ramp, and it was expensive. And what they found out is less is more. Walk them in equal and even with the people.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I kind of liked the ramp. I thought it was kind of cool, but I can kind of see what you're saying. The UFC walkout is more reminiscent of what you'll see in boxing, right? Just a whole bunch of people around a guy that just walks out of a tunnel. I don't know. I think I like the stage. Kind of reminds me of Clash of the Champions, '88.
Yeah, and I don't. And I think, they've tried it and then it's failed. And I think the reason that it fails is because the fighters bend over. And all of a sudden, you don't see them anymore. They got a sponsor's T-shirt on. They're hunched over. You can't they're supposed to walk proud and strong like a gladiator. And not hunched over trying to get the approval from, somebody that's on his way to the ring. So I think it's weird. But if you like it and your opinion is as valid as mine, that's just my thoughts on it. But the only reason I'm even bringing it up is because your question specifically just said, what do you think of the production value? I think from a production standpoint, first off, you can save some money, but second off, I just think it looks better.
Yeah, I hear you on that. Got two guys, just get your thoughts on. Conor McGregor and Aaron Pico.
Okay, give me the first guy's name again.
Conor McGregor.
Yeah, okay. You cut out there. Conor's doing everything right. Andy's tougher than hell. He's the real deal. Guys are frustrated and annoyed by the push that he's getting. The fact that he'll be in his second main event, and I believe is only his fifth UFC fight, and he'll already be headlining 2 events. But he's doing everything right, and it's not just tough. He is an entertainer. That's true, and he's got a gimmick. the suits and the fancy watches and stuff, that's a gimmick, but there's nothing wrong with that. He'll be the first to tell you, hey man, I'm here to entertain, but don't forget the fact I can also fight. And he's got an undefeated record to support that. And I think the fact that he's fighting in main events against badasses, and Diego Brandao he doesn't get his credit, but that guy's a badass, particularly in the first round. And the fact that Conor could deal with that pressure of headlining an event in his hometown and taking on a stud and finish him within 5 minutes, man, I think it speaks volumes. And the second guy, Aaron Pico.
Yeah, I think,
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that the criticism with McGregor just stems from UFC seemingly not wanting to throw him in there with a wrestler. Somebody's going to throw him on his back. I got to think Mendez can lay on him for 3 rounds. I got to think Frankie Edgar, can do the same thing to McGregor that he did to Cub Swanson.
Well, they should be able to. I think it's a fun point to speculate about. Ireland doesn't have a wrestling team, but I can tell you I've been in there with guys even like Bisping from, British fighter from England. Yeah. They also don't have a wrestling team, but he's figured it out. And Bisping's hard to take down, and if you get him down, he's great at getting back up. Maybe Conor is too. We haven't seen enough of Conor. We've only seen a few fights, and he's looked great. But I think they ought to be able to do that, and so I think that's a point to speculate. This is what we do with everybody. How's St. Pierre going to do on his back before we ever see him there? How's Randy going to do once he gets? How's Lesnar going to do? This is what we do with everybody until we see it. And there's a lot of guys that can be said about where that is a problem, and they got to be matched up just right. He could be one of them, but I think if you're a wrestler and you're trying to pick a fight with them, and you come out and you point that out, I think it's a miss. He is a main event spot right now. He's a huge attraction. And if you're right, if the big double leg takedown is going to be his kryptonite, they're not going to give you the fight. They're not looking to derail him right now. So if you want that fight, you need to sneak your way into it. If you think you've got the answer to beat him, don't go out and advertise it. These guys are the biggest bunch of dummies, and they wonder why they can't get the fights that they want. You can't get the fight because you're a dummy. Conor McGregor will get the fights because he's smart, and there's nothing wrong with this. And there's people that believe if you can identify what I just said, if you can point that out, that you can say, aha, I've got you. You don't have anything. This is the way it works. All you're doing is stating the obvious. This is a promotion company. Okay, if you get a star, you don't need to bring him down. You may look at the guy's skill set and go, I want to keep him away from certain guys. Manny Pacquiao does that to this day. Floyd Mayweather does that to this day. Mike Tyson did that through his career, staying away from Evander Holyfield. So many people, and what I find interesting about it, Brian, is when they think they can say, aha, I've figured it out. Well, this isn't the tournament, guys. This isn't a blind draw, straight-up competition like the Olympic Games. This is a promotional event. The fights get picked. There's not a competitive architecture in place. So let's make sure we just define that now, and not let these new fans and these reporters have this aha moment when they finally get like there's this big thing behind the curtain. We get it. That's what this is. It's not a tournament. So if you want the fight, you got to go about it smarter than point it out. I mean, Lamas just did this. Lamas just had the greatest fight of his career. And he actually, his second fight, greatest fight of his career was against Jose Aldo. He lost that fight, but he fought excellence, particularly in rounds 4 and 5. Lamas is a badass. He just finished Bermuda. He has this big moment, and he blows it. He blows it by saying too much. He blows it by giving the big reveal.
And what about Pico? I mean, my take on it is, I mean, he might be one of the best freestyle wrestlers, 18-year-old freestyle wrestlers since Cejudo or Schultz or Dave Schultz. But is it too much too soon? Should this kid have the opportunity to just be a kid? Because I saw him, we were at our buddy John Reeder's wedding in Colorado, and Aaron was there, and I'm like, wow, it's just such a young kid. I mean, he's a badass, and he just beat a senior level world champion yesterday, from what I read. But it's just like, maybe what Sanderson did, and Varner, and some of the other gold medalists going through college, maybe that's the best option for the most success in the long term.
What we would like our wrestlers to do, if you call up Rich Bender, you call up Les Gutchis, the head guys at USA Wrestling, Rich Bender is going to tell you, here's what we want our athletes to do. We want them to go through high school. We want them to go through college at any level. We want them to then come into what's known as the senior level, or try to make these world and Olympic teams. But we want it to be done in that order. That's our ideal situation. Every now and then, you get this blessed and rare talent, like Pico. So then what do you do with it? From a coaching standpoint, I can tell you this, Brian, as a coach, we need to win the matches we can win when we can win them. And so many coaches will outsmart themselves with, I'm going to redshirt this guy, or I'm going to put this guy in, on a sabbatical so I can bring him in 2 years. Man, if this guy can throw touchdowns right now, put him in the game right now. Don't think about 2 years later, because you don't know where he's going to be. When guys get off course really easy, whether it's a lack of motivation, how many guys have we seen that meet a girl, and all of a sudden, as far as an athletic career, man, it's over. We see these things happen, or the really dark side, a guy gets an injury, guy gets in a car wreck, something drastic happens. If you can win matches from a coaching standpoint, you need to win the matches when you can win them. If you're Jon Jones and you're 24 years old and you got the chance to go fight Shogun and be a world champion, you got to do it. Don't think about, I got plenty of time, I got another 10 years, I'll do that a couple years from now. You got to do it right now. So there's a conflict in philosophies, and I think that Pico is for sure missing out. He's missing out on high school. He's missing out on that glory. He's missing out on going to the prom and getting his heart broke and doing all those things that you need to do as a young man. On the other side of it, he's sacrificing for perhaps the ultimate glory, which is an Olympic gold medal or a world championship in MMA. And he's made his choice. And, as a fan, I got to support it.
Yeah. I would think, he's going to give it his best shot through 2016 and then go to Bellator. There was some talk that he would go all the way to the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, but I just can't see him being able to say no to that Viacom money when they're going to want to promote the hell out of this prodigy, this wrestling prodigy who also a national champion boxer.
Yeah, well, you got a few problems. Or I guess, they're good things if you're in Pico's shoes, which is not only is he an excellent talent, and is he, once, maybe twice in a lifetime talent. In my lifetime, I've only seen one other talent like this. At any rate, but he's also a really nice guy, and he's a handsome guy, and he's at the right weight class, right? He's not at either end of the spectrum. He's not a tiny guy. He's not a huge guy. He's right in the middle, right where the heart of competition is. Then you add the fact that he's young, he's likable. This is the kind of guy, if you're a promotion company, this is the kind of guy you're looking to get behind. And if he can get to the championship at 18, 19 years old, you need him to, because you can hang on to that for 10 years, 15 years. That's the one thing we don't have in MMA or in the UFC, is we can't predict who's going to be the champion. If you're Dana White, it's really hard to put future shows together, because you just don't know who's going to win. At the same time, you have to put those shows together. So now you're left speculating. But if you're Dana White and you push the green light on a show, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars in marketing material, just in posters and billboards and commercials. Millions of dollars. Yeah. And if you get it wrong, and you got to redo that artwork and graphic design and resend the memos to the radio station and redo the countdown footage, man, it's a problem. Vince McMahon talked about that early on in MMA. He said the only way you can build a star is if you control it, which is what he does. He knows who's going to win WrestleMania next year, the year after that, the year after that. He knows who's going to hold the straps. He knows whose T-shirts they need to get behind and slogans. And he predicted the fall of MMA because we can't do that. Now, he was wrong. instead of declining, the sport actually boomed. He made that statement way back in like 2002, 2003. So the point that I'm trying to make on Aaron Pico, if you can get a young guy and you can put the belt on him, that's what you want to do. You don't want to delay it. You don't want to build a guy slowly. If he can, in fact, go all the way to the crown like Mike Tyson did, youngest heavyweight boxer of all time, and then he can stay in that driver's seat for a decade, that's a very rare thing.
Yeah. That's
what's so hard about losing St. Pierre. Not only was he a draw, not only was he a handsome dude that everybody liked, had a cool little voice with his French Canadian accent, but he had the strap. He had the belt. And, he's selling. I could tell you, I got a podcast too. And I know this is your debut one, and it's fun. And tomorrow, when this comes out, you're going to be calling your producer going, hey, how many people listened? How many people downloaded it? And it's fun to hear that number. And it feeds your ego. You're going, wow, that 1 million people listened to my first podcast. Wow. I'm in the podcast too, and Dana White always talks about what a big draw George St. Pierre is. I can tell you from those numbers that come in, man, I didn't understand how big the guy was. I didn't understand how big he was till he came on my podcast. And my second biggest podcast was you, when I had you on there. But, St. Pierre's unbelievable. And it's not done. That's the one thing about podcasts is they live in perpetuity. People can go listen to this 20 years from now. They can download it. Well, people are still doing that with the St. Pierre one. They're still going back and listening, hundreds and thousands each day. I'm going, where are all these people at? How is this guy this popular?
And the other interesting thing about these podcasts is going to be, because there's so many of these sites that will pull quotes, from your show, or maybe they'll pull a few quotes from this one. I don't know. I don't know if they're listening. How do you monetize that? Because it would seem like that would be money only for them. It doesn't get back to the show because they put it out. They basically summarize it so the person doesn't have to read it or listen to it.
Yeah, and if they do any kind of fair journalism, and most of these sites, they border on that, but most of them will always give credit to their source. And if you do, I can tell you from my experience, every podcast I've done, something gets pulled out, and even though the headline isn't what the meat of it is, they will always say where they got it, which is, Chael Sonnen's You're Welcome podcast, and then they'll put a link to the podcast. So they will summarize it, and people will go through it and read. I'm one of those people. I don't listen to all the podcasts that I'm current on. A lot of them I'm current just because I do go read those things. But they will then include a link. And I don't know what the percentage is of people that click that link, but it's a lot. And when you talk about monetizing it, it all comes down to clicks. It's the same as television. How many people are tuning in? A podcast is exciting because they can tell you exactly. Like, take radio for example. I have a promotions company here in Oregon, and we do radio ads. But when I buy those spots, when I buy a package, we're guessing. We know that drive time is popular. We know from 6 to 8 a.m. We know from 5 to 7 p.m. are popular times. We know the weekends are a little slow. But we don't know how many people are listening. And if I say, okay, here's my budget, $10,000, I write them a check for $10,000. However many people listen. If I get a ton of bang for my buck or I get no bang, they keep my $10,000. In podcasts, it's an exact audit. You will know exactly 4,100,000, you'll know exactly the number, and advertisers really like that. Advertisers are starting to see, man, I can pay per click, and unlike radio where I can write a check for $10,000, I'm out. I don't have to give you any more, but you don't give me any back. Podcast, you don't know what your number is. If you agree to pay 10 cents per click, you might be writing a $10,000 check. You might be writing a $1,000 check. Right. But advertisers are seeming to like that, because they can say, look, I don't really care how big the check is. I just want to know how many people I can reach. And this is the one way that I can know exactly how many people I'm reaching. And I didn't know that. I'm brand new to this business. I know you are too, so I'm saying it to educate you. But, that's how that works. Stone Cold Steve Austin's the one that told me. He's got this huge podcast. He's doing it twice a day. He's turning down movie roles to stay home and do his podcast. And he said, Chael, you got to get into it, man. He said, this is where radio is going. All radio, talk to any advertiser, they're all pulling their dollars out of radio. They're all going to podcast.
He had a show last week with Bray Wyatt, Mike Rotunda's son.
Oh, yeah.
And the quality was bad, but I still listened to it, the whole damn thing. And it was just so interesting. I don't know if you've listened, but that's one of those can't-miss episodes. I can't believe that guy's only 26 years old. He has such a deep understanding of the business and, the way he developed this character. And Stone Cold asks all the right questions.
Sure. I think that guy playing Bray Wyatt is that Mike Rotunda's son? Is that what you just said?
Yeah. So Mike has two
I didn't know
sons.
that.
Yeah, he has two sons in WWE. The other guy's name is Bo Dallas, who's a smaller guy, slimmer, who went right into wrestling after high school, where Bray Wyatt went to a junior college, played football, and then went to Troy State University, which is Division I, and he played some football. He's like 300 pounds back then. But he was a Florida State wrestling champ at heavyweight.
Okay, and I think Bray is one of the biggest talents they have right now. That character's great. Whoever wrote that nailed it. If you've ever seen the TV series Justified, I'm quite sure that his character was at least influenced by that, all the way down to the music, the backwoods, the whole theme. But he nails it, man. You can give a guy a great gimmick all you want. Not anybody, not just anybody could go throw on a red and yellow T-shirt and tear it off and become Hulk Hogan. It's not the gimmick, it's the performer, and this guy's nailing it. I think he's one of the biggest talents out there, particularly when you consider he's 26. But I haven't heard that show. I haven't heard he and Stone Cold show. I will check that out.
Yeah, and that I can't believe we haven't even talked about CM Punk. That might have to be another time, because I know.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it, because it won't be fresh anymore.
Well, you still have time, or is Brittany going to be hounding you? Say, get off the phone.
No, Brittany's right here. She's eavesdropping on everything. She likes to be the first one to hear the podcast. So her way of doing that is by coming in the room. She's reading a very intelligent piece of literature known as the National Enquirer right now. She's multitasking. That's a hot woman right there.
Keeping up with the Kardashians later, you think, or?
Guaranteed. I'm up to speed on the Kardashians because she plays it in the background. I can't miss it. And they drive me bonkers.
Yeah, so
and there's a major identity crisis going on right there. Have you seen Bruce Jenner?
Yeah, well,
I mean, he doesn't know left, right, or center right now.
Yeah, and it's weird. One of his best friends is actually a pretty famous transgender. Forget the name, but it was a he who went to a she and then became sued to become a professional tennis player. And she now is actually an MD, like I think an ear doctor or something, and became something of a celebrity. I forget the name, but apparently they're friends. So that kind of leads to the rumor that maybe she's counseling him on how to make this transition.
Yeah, and again, that's speculation. I mean, there's no way to know. My wife's holding an Enquirer right now. They're the ones talking about this. TV's talking about. I have no idea what's in the guy's heart. I can tell you, it's tough to see an Olympic legend just being so different right now. So much for attention. So it's like, hey man, you don't have to do all these things for attention. You don't have to wear the crazy outfits and paint the tone. You don't have to do all that stuff. You're an Olympic champion, man. You got our attention. We respect you, and we always will. So one thing about winning an Olympic gold medal or a world championship, you will have all of Earth's respect for your rest of your time on this Earth and beyond. That's what's so neat about being a world champion, man. You'll never be forgot. But when you start doing these things for publicity, it's disappointing.
Yeah, forever.
Now, I don't know how we're talking about this. We're talking about CM Punk, aren't we? How do we get from Punk to Bruce Jenner? Let's go back to Punk.
Because Brittany watches that show, Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Oh, that's what it was. That's what it was.
You gotta get her.
Okay. See how we transitioned? We have a case of ADD here on the Front Row Brian Show.
Right. Well, Chael Jr. is going to be harmed greatly if she watches that during the rest of the pregnancy. I'm convinced of it. So try to get control of that, all right?
Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, so
She's
CM
smiling
Punk,
to you right now. All right, go back to Punk.
So CM Punk, just fabulous guy. Well, he might be. I don't know him. You know him a little bit, or more than a little bit. And he came out and absolutely trashed WWE. I mean, not just said some negative things. I mean, for 2 hours just said everything that you could imagine negative about the company. Did you get a chance to listen to it?
I know all about it, and I've only heard a little bit. It was on something called Stitcher, and I downloaded that app. How do you say it?
Stitcher.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's what I said. And I downloaded the app. You sent me the link, and it was a little choppy. I got it in bits and pieces, but I read about it. I know all about it. And, you know, that's one of the things that happens when you sit around stewing on something for as long as he did. You know, when you finally you reach the point of maximum combustion, you know, you explode. And he finally exploded. And we all wanted him. I reached out to him, too. I said, man, I got a podcast. I really want you to come on because it's going to be a huge hit. And people have been wanting to hear from him. And he was really smart about keeping his mouth shut.
Did you hear him call out people?
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you hear him call out people that were bothering just to get on the podcast? Was he talking about you?
Well, he could have been, but I mean, this is a reality. If you have a podcast, you're going to find this too. You know, if you have a podcast, it's what you have to do.
Yeah, I mean, you got to find interesting subject matter, right?
Yeah, I ended up on Chris Jericho's podcast. It was a huge success, but I just ended up sitting behind him on an airplane, and I shoulder tapped him. He didn't follow the UFC, but I followed his career. I'm like, hey, by the way, big fan, which would probably annoy some guys. You know, he's on an airplane, but he was cool. He was like, oh, hey, what's your name? You know, nice to meet you. And you know, by the end of the flight, he's like, hey, why don't you come on my podcast? But that's one of the things he told me when I got into it. He said, you know, you got to hustle a little bit, and you got to bother some people. So, you know, it's a compliment to Punk that people want him on. But the one thing that he did that was really smart, and that is he kept his mouth shut. When he went through this thing, he kept his mouth shut. Because you only have one opportunity to make a first statement. Right. Once you give that initial statement, everybody's going to pick. Here we are on your show. Picking it up. The next statement he makes, you and I probably aren't going to be covering. But because this is the first one, you get a lot of bang for your buck. Now, at the same time, you got to be careful. People are going to be listening. This isn't going to fly under the radar. If you're going to have a counseling session with yourself where you vent your frustration and you get it out, be careful where you do it. I've seen people do it in autobiographies, Brian. They put it down in black and white. You're reading this going, okay, I know what's going on here. I know this is psychological. I know this is a counseling session for you, not for me, the reader, that paid $9.95 for your book, but for you. But, man, you can't take some of this stuff back. And I don't know that he went as far as for me to take it back. I was just making that point. But I think he went a little further than he needed to. I think that even if you're right on a wrong issue, negativity won't attract people. You won't win people to your side. You know, attitudes are contagious, and if you're positive, that's gonna infect people. And the same thing goes with negative. And I think he spewed a little more negativity than he meant to. But at the same time, man, it was his first statement. He's been pissed off. He's been pissed off for how long? And they did mess with him. His points were straight up real. They messed with him on his contract. They fired him on his wedding day. He tried to get a dialogue going. Their attitude was my way or the highway. And he's going, man, I've been with you a long time. I'm just trying to express some stuff here. Don't make me do it on a guy's podcast. Let me come into the office out there in Sanford to do it. So his points were valid. But I think from a PR standpoint, I would have advised him to go about addressing them differently.
You would have told him to come on the You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen. Is it?
I would have told him to come on. Well, yeah, absolutely, I would have. I would have made a ton of money off him, and I wanted to send him $1. But welcome to the podcast business.
Right, yeah. Kind of.
I hate that fact. I told him that in a text to him, like, hey man, I got a new podcast going. You'd be a huge hit. Can I get that spot? And he's like, I can't do it. He's like, I'm underground. And then he came out of nowhere. Yeah, he came out of nowhere with that podcast he did. Nobody knew he was ready to talk.
But I mean, Colt is like his best friend, and it was very telling the questions that he didn't ask CM Punk. He didn't ask him about competing in MMA, or more specifically the UFC, which there's been some rumors leaking out from people that I trust that there's at least discussion in the, what is it, the third floor at Zuffa's where all the decision makers are?
Second floor at Zuffa, but I can tell you, man, and I don't know. I haven't straight up asked him, but I know that business and I know that company, and I can tell you it's not true. It's not true. And one thing about Punk, I think he wants to fight. I think that is accurate. Much like I told you earlier. Go ahead. What's that?
They wouldn't bring him in there just to get beat up, sell a bunch of pay-per-views and say, hey. No.
And I don't think so. They've only done the oddity fight, a couple of times. They brought in that guy that beat Kimbo. I can't think of his name. Sean Gannon. They brought in James Toney. That's really it. Dana's not into those oddity fights. Now that doesn't mean he couldn't be captivated. It was entertaining Wesley Snipes versus Joe Rogan at one time. But that doesn't mean he couldn't every now and every few years. You talk him into something. The thing with Punk, and I think he wants to fight. But I think him wanting to fight is similar to me telling you that I want to try for the 2016 Olympics. I think that's a goal. I think that's a dream. But I think you look at the reality, you look at your age, you look at your environment. He does train very rigorously and very seriously in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he has great coaches with Henry Gracie and the gang out there. But he doesn't ever train or even talk about training MMA. He was a martial arts fan. He's a fight fan. But he spent his time wrestling. He built in at home gym. He's kind of an exercise and a health nut, even though he orders a lot of pizza. He doesn't really talk about MMA. I think he'd want to do it. I think he would want to take 10 years and bring him in for a contract. He might have gone that route. But he doesn't even tell me that privately. Like, he doesn't say, hey, I want to go into the UFC. Never. Never. He never says anything like that. Yeah, he likes MMA, and he talks about wishing he would have gone into fighting. Like I talked about, I wish I would have done some pro wrestling matches. That's just a dream. That's just what we do.
Yeah, but if he went into fighting, we're not talking about Phil Brooks right now. It's a guy that didn't even wrestle in high school. And
yeah, I don't think there's any validity to it. I think it's just a dream, and people are talking. But I don't think it's likely. And you bring Lesnar over, you can sell that. And the UFC, it was a promotions business at one point, and then it really started to focus on the competitive side and credibility. It became big. Once it goes mainstream, you've got to be credible, and you've got to give the right guys the title shots. Kami struggled for a while. He struggled to get a title shot because he wasn't a big draw. You couldn't really put him in there with Anderson, but he was the guy.
Right.
He was beating everybody, and when you're looking, for credit, you got to match those right matches up. You just have to do it, whether it's what sells or not. Now you go back to Brock Lesnar, you could sell that. That was real. Not only is this a monster, not only is this guy fairly young. I think he was like 31, 33 at the time. Not terribly bad. Younger than Randy Couture was when he started, but he's got a national championship from college. He's got a Division I national championship. So now, from a credibility standpoint, you're covering all your bases. That's good for business, good for promotion, but you also have you maintain that credibility factor. I don't think Punk has the resume where you could just bring him in. And even with Kimbo Slice, they finally said, yeah, you can do it, but you've got to come through a feeder program, which was the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah, he got in there. I don't know. I'm just thinking that part of me is saying that it is possible because they're hurting on pay-per-view. The profits are down as much as 40%, according to I don't know if it was Forbes or one of those outlets. I don't know if they were just hot shot book a fight, him versus Baroni or him versus anybody, and because Punk has these fans that are just they're not just fans, they hang on every word this guy says, whether he's working or whether he's just being Phil Brooks.
Sure. And if he wanted in on something, if he was to call me and say that, it's not a cash grab. At this point, it's not a cash. He's got plenty of money. And how much money? It's none of my business, but he's got plenty of money. And so if it's not a cash grab, why are you doing it? Is it a competitive love? Well, no, he doesn't love competing in MMA. He's never done it. If he was looking to just get involved in something on a high level and make some money, use it as a profession, I think Metamoris would be his way to go, because that's what he does. He is a jiu-jitsu guy, legit gi jiu-jitsu, no gi, very legit, all in the training room. He hasn't competed, but that's a pay-per-view event. It's something he could get in on. That would be my recommendation if he was to do it. If you put him in the UFC, I don't know who you put him against. I don't know what weight class he would go. He might go as low as 170. Maybe he would cut weight. He wouldn't go any higher than 185. I just don't know where you. I just don't know where you put him. And then how do you sell it?
Now, if these guys at Metamoris really wanted to make a dent in the marketplace, CM Punk versus you would create quite a bit of talk.
I think that's right. And I suggested that to Halleck Gracie, and he laughed. I suggested it by text message, and he wrote me back, LOL. Now, I wasn't joking. When I said it to him, I wasn't kidding around about it. And then when he said the LOL, I didn't follow up. I just let it go. But when you talk about the UFC and you talk about pay-per-view, and that's true, there's a lot of products when pay-per-view does go down. In boxing, it's just the opposite. If you spent 15 minutes studying economics, you spent 14 too many. Supply and demand. There's nothing else you need to know. Supply and demand. It's kind of like business. These people that go to school for business, you need to know one thing for business. Make sure your profits exceed your expenditures. The end. Here's your degree. And the UFC, that's true. Pay-per-views are down. Now, there's way more product. So that's just a natural market that's going to happen. There is a huge misunderstanding by people that business is down. Business isn't down. People will go to live shows too, and sometimes they'll think that because they'll see a couple of seats. But we got to understand we're holding 53 events now, not 6. Supply and demand. You're going to have in some of these size venues they play. You're going to have some empty seats, but they're not in the pay-per-view business anymore.
Yeah.
That is an arm of it, but now they're doing syndication. They're doing TV deals. I was in Brazil. UFC wasn't even on pay-per-view over there. It's on something called Globo, which is their biggest station. It's their version of NBC. They've got these deals all over. Canada, they just got the Latin America deals. They're doing a deal in the Middle East. They've been playing in China. Gary Cook talked about some monster deal they're about to land in Russia. So it's kind of confusing. Even each night, Dana White will announce the gate. And the gates are good. That's an arm of the business. But he's never been in the gate business, ever. Not even from day one. He was never after the gate. He was after the pay-per-view. Now he's not as much after the pay-per-view. There's different arms, and people don't understand that. The UFC is a business, and their business is their business, and they play it very close to the vest. And you don't always know, but there's just a lot of things. I say about Dana all the time. The guy passes himself off as a fight promoter. Hey, what do you do? I promote fight promoter. He's way more than that. He produces 4 television shows. He owns a magazine. He's in gaming and distribution. He's got the characters, through Jacks and comic books and sponsorships. It's way more than that. He's the leader of a major enterprise, and a lot of people sit back and they can only see what's right in front of them, which is pay-per-view numbers or live gate, and they're right on both. It's a market. There's dips in markets. That's true.
Yeah, and those are easier stats to find because Dave Meltzer will come out with the pay-per-views, because usually the pay-per-views are tied to, like, Google searches. There's a relationship between the two that Dave has found. And then the live gate, the commission will typically announce it, even though UFC is trying to get that stop. They were successful in Florida by getting that information suppressed going forward, because Florida would also tell you how much the rights fees were, not the pay-per-view.
And see, that's nobody's business.
Yeah, so they disclosed, I think it was $2.2 million for that Orlando card on Fox, with Verdun and Travis Brown. So I don't think they wanted their TV rights fees out there, because, speaking to what you said with the international TV distribution, we don't know what that deal in the Middle East is worth. We don't know what the deal in the UK is worth, or the deal on Globo. Right. It's just real easy to look up what Dave said on pay-per-view, or what the commission said was the live gate. So,
the only deal we know is the Fox deal. And they advertised it's $1 billion deal. They advertised it, but they might as well have. Fox is a publicly traded company. I'm a shareholder. News Corp. You can check. You can check it on the NASDAQ on a daily basis. They have to reveal that information, and it would have gotten out. So that they advertised it, and it was a monster deal. They've got deals in other countries. I can tell you, when I was in Brazil, and I'm right there on the TV set of Global, the Global executives said, they wouldn't tell me what the deal was, but they said, we make the Fox deal look small. That's a quote. Wow. Now Brazil's huge. It's a huge market. They do crazy numbers over there. Crazy number. The worst show that Vanderlei and I did in Brazil did 11.2 million viewers. That was the worst one we did. The best show Jon and I did, Jon Jones and I here, and we were the biggest of all time on the new network of FS1, was just under 1.6 million. And that was a huge, huge hit. And the worst in Brazil was 11 times more, and it plays at 11 p.m. on Sunday night in Brazil. Not exactly a desirable time slot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I can tell you, you brought up Meltzer earlier and those pay-per-view numbers. I've been privy to 5 pay-per-views in my entire career. Been with the UFC for 9 years. I've only been privy to 5 pay-per-views. The 2 that I did with Anderson, the one I did with Jon Jones, the Nick Diaz, George St. Pierre fight, because that outdid Jon and I. Right. Jon and I ended up being the second biggest pay-per-view of that year. And the Rashad Evans versus Jon Jones fight, because I was sitting with Dana White when he got the call. And I can tell you, Meltzer's numbers are way off. They're way low compared to what the real numbers are. And Meltzer is by far the closest person out there. Whatever he's using for his guesses, which nobody disputes because they refuse to release them, he is the closest, but he's off by a lot.
Wow. Like several 100,000, or maybe
about a couple 100,000. But when you look at 200,000 buys at $50 a buy, you're talking about a $10 million swing. Yeah. And when you're doing that 13 times a year, I mean, he's just off. It's not an insult to Dave. And I know Dave, Front Row Brian listener. I know he's listening to this right now.
Sure.
But the bottom line is he's off. I mean, I was sitting I was in on a few of those pay-per-views, so they have to tell me numbers, but I was sitting next to Dana having a steak in Florida before we flew to Brazil for a press conference. When he got the call, I know exactly what Jon Jones and Rashad did. And, man, they cleaned up. They did great.
Yeah. I want to... UFC 181. Just to close up here, just wanted to get your thoughts on the 2 main fights: Lawler and Hendricks, and Gilbert Melendez and Anthony Pettis.
Oh, there's just so many moving parts there. Pettis has been out with an injury. However, he's at the right age where that doesn't really matter. He's at the age where just by being alive, you get better. He got a little stronger in his time off, just by maturity. He's going to pick up techniques in his time off. So a lot of people are looking at that point of his injury. I think it's a fun talking point, but the relevance is, there's certain parts of your life where it's just that you just get better by staying alive. And he's right at that age point. Now, Gilbert, Gilbert's a rough dude. They got the common opponent in Ben Henderson. Gilbert lost that fight. That was arguable. Pettis won that fight. There's no question there. But I don't know that really works. I think this is a hard fight for Pettis. I think Gilbert can go out there. Gilbert's gritty enough. He never gives up. He doesn't get caught in submissions. He doesn't get knocked out, but he will get knocked down. And Pettis is one hell of a striker.
Yep.
I think there's a few moving parts to that. That's one fight that I don't really have a pick in. When people go, hey, who do you think's going to win? I kind of get hesitant to say because I really don't have one. It's a really close and tough and gritty match. And I thought that same thing going into Pettis versus Cerrone, that this is going to be a very close kickboxing fight. And Pettis went out there and got the job done quick. So, I think Anthony's one of those rare talents. I think he's the right world champion. I think he's a lot better than people know he is.
Sure.
Even though he's ranked number 1, I think he's better than that. I mean, I think in a pound-for-pound discussion, Anthony Pettis very soon will be brought up. He just hasn't been active enough.
Gotcha. And Hendricks and Lawler rematch. It was a great fight. The first one.
I love it. It's an offensive battle. Neither one of those guys is a counterpuncher. Neither one of those guys is defensive. It's whoever mounts the most offense, whoever throws the most punches, whoever throws the most kicks. Lawler with his knees is going to win that. If this was a football game, that's exactly what it'd be called. It'd be called an offensive battle, and whoever can get the most touchdowns, it's got nothing to do with your defense. And I think that's where those guys are at. Now, Johnny Hendricks failed in taking Lawler down in the first fight. He got him down, but he failed a lot of times. Lawler's defense for his wrestling was really on point. If Hendricks goes out in this fight and says, screw it, I'm not even going to try to take him down, he's going to have problems. The reason Hendricks was so successful with his hands and his body in the last fight was Lawler was constantly worried about that change in elevation and the double leg tackle. So Hendricks needs to keep threatening that. He doesn't want to just go, what the hell, I can strike with this guy. He did strike with him last time, but he only struck with him because Lawler was, worried about those takedowns. And once Lawler defended a few and relaxed, that's when Lawler really started to get off.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, that was a great fight. I mean, Hendricks took so much punishment that I thought, maybe Lawler stole 3 rounds. But I agree with the decision, but when I saw it live, I was like, oh, maybe there's a chance there.
Yeah, I didn't know either. I was pretty sure that Lawler had lost the fight that Johnny had won, but I didn't know. I was on the set, the Fox Sports one. I was sitting with Daniel Cormier, who's a longtime Johnny Hendricks friend, one of his former coaches at Oklahoma State, and he didn't know. We both sat there going, I think they're going to give it to... That was one of those fights where whoever's hand they raised, there's not going to be a complaint. There might be some people thinking, I thought the other guy won, but nobody's screaming conspiracy. Nobody's screaming screw job. It's just a great match. It's a really great match. I think this next one's going to be too. I can't believe how well Lawler's doing on his second run. It almost never happens that way. You're talking about Randy Couture when he came back and won the title. But what a big deal that was. Well, it was such a big deal because it's not supposed to work that way.
Isn't it amazing?
Same thing with Lawler.
Isn't it amazing he's 32? He's been around forever.
That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He's fighting his best fights. He's fighting his absolute best fights. And, an athlete doesn't get better without enhancing medication. That's the reality of human beings. But Lawler's not. Well, but I'm going somewhere else with that. Lawler's clear. Lawler looks the same. Lawler takes his T-shirt off now. He looks the exact same as he did 10 years ago. Lawler's not doing anything. He has just simply gotten better. And there is one change with Lawler, and that is he left Iowa, where he trained forever. Miletich, top coach out there, quit coaching. All of a sudden, one day, Miletich just wasn't training guys. And he had 3 UFC champions in his room. He just stopped training. Lawler was one of his guys, so Lawler packed up and went to the ATT. And, whether it's coaching, atmosphere, training partners, I have no idea. I just know the guy's never fought this well.
Yeah, he looked as though as one of these guys that never progressed beyond sprawl and brawl. In his early days, in his early 20s, and he looked like a guy that, hey, probably going to have to start looking at another career, right? But when he was around 30, and then this incredible comeback. And really a great story. I guess a little bit like Mark Hunt, but I guess he wasn't as big of an underdog as Mark Hunt, but definitely came out of nowhere. I don't think anybody was calling for a huge Robbie Lawler revival.
Yeah, and there was positions that if you put Lawler in, you were going to win. He had major weaknesses. You look at the Jake Shields fight. if Jake can take him down, Jake's likely going to finish him. Well, that's exactly what happened. And all of a sudden, you know, from a physical standpoint, not only is Lawler very hard to take down, but you're not finishing him now when you do. He's scrambling back to his feet. He's patient. He's not getting frustrated. I can tell you as a fighter, when things start going bad, there's a frustration standpoint. And a lot of times you'll lose your composure. You let a guy sink in some kind of a submission, and you just get out of there. And he's had some rough moments. You know, whether it's the Matt Brown fight, the Rory McDonald fight, the John Hendricks fight, but he stayed in there. He didn't lose his composure. He didn't flick the fight. He stayed in there. You know, if I was to point to anything that he's doing well right now that's different on the second surgence, I would say it's patience. You know, he's patient out there. He's not looking to finish guys. He's not looking to get finished. And that used to be the Robbie Lawler story. It was kind of like Vitor. You know, he's a first-round guy. If you didn't get the job done in the first round, you knew how the story was going to end 9 out of 10 times. And now he's not like that. I mean, the Matt Brown fight was a 5-round war. He stood his ground all 25 minutes.
Yeah, pretty amazing. Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to it, and you'll be in Bristol at ESPN. Everybody can. Why do
I feel like you're starting to rush me? What is it that you have to do today that you need to get off the phone with old Chael? What exactly do you have going on out there that you need to wrap this up?
Well, I have had a few beers today. Okay, and I know
I'm stunned.
I know that you don't drink. I know that. But after you drink 5 or 6 and you sit in the same place for like 2 to 3 hours, you know. No, you you don't get it.
You're needing to stretch the legs. All right. What you're saying is, okay. You need to go take a potty break, is what it sounds like. Do you want me to just cover? Do you want me to just talk to the fans for a while while you run to the bathroom?
We're gonna have to edit this, but yeah.
No, you don't have to edit that. Let them know. I'll tell you, if there's one thing I learned from Dana about giving interviews, because Kenny and I used to have him on all the time on UFC Tonight, and we would always ask him, hey, is there something we need to stay away from? And every time he would say, ask me anything. There was never a rule on what to stay away from. You talked about that in Punk, with Punk's interview, that you thought his friend Colt was clearly staying away from certain things.
Yeah.
If you ever want to give a good interview, man, it's got to be I came on your show. We're good friends. You asked me all about performance today. You asked me about failing drug tests. I mean, if I was to say, don't stay away from it, it would have been that. So you don't start your podcast that way, man. It's got to be free reign. We're on the internet.
Yeah, where there are no rules. All right. So do you want to take the wheel? You want to take the wheel for a minute?
Yeah. Give me a topic though. I need a topic to discuss with everybody.
I was scratching some things down here. What else do I have here?
You've got some notes in front of you. Why don't you read them out loud?
Tell us about Dan Henderson and Mousasi. Dan Henderson and Mousasi.
Okay, you run to the bathroom.
All right.
Say something when you come back, like, cough into the mic so I know you're back. All right, so Henderson Mousasi. I think it's interesting. I think it's an interesting fight, and here's why. If Mousasi has any weakness, it's his chin. From a physical standpoint, he doesn't get knocked. This isn't a guy that gets knocked out, but this is a guy that was born with a small chin. If you ever meet the guy and you visit with him, he doesn't have that great big jaw, and if guys can touch it, they tend to hurt him. He's got good movement. It doesn't happen a lot, but guys tend to hurt him. Henderson, what's he known for? The H-bomb, the big right hand. If he can hit Mousasi, I think it's a good matchup. Both guys are coming off a loss, but Mousasi's fighting really well. Henderson's, changing weight classes. He's come back to 185, which is where he belongs. He went up to 205. Got a title shot with Jon Jones that didn't end up coming through. He's going back to 185. I think it's going to be a good change for him, and I think it's where he belongs. He only walks around at about 196 pounds. He just hates cutting weight, despises it. So he always just chose to give up weight and not pull it. And he doesn't use his wrestling enough that's gonna. outdo Masasi, so it's going to come down to a striking battle. Henderson's got the power, and Masasi's got like a 28-1 kickboxing record. So, are you back yet? I feel like you're moving in the microphone. Have you given me the cue that you're back yet?
I'm back, man.
So I was just rambling there for a while. Well, I told you were supposed to cough when you came back. Like,
oh, I didn't hear it. So, what did you say? Was it anything interesting or what?
It was brilliant. It was brilliant. I just gave the cure for cancer, and you missed it. So,
I missed it.
So shame on you. But yes, it was compelling radio.
I've absolutely exhausted everything that I wanted to bother you about.
And I can't think of anything else either. I'm trying to think of something good to drop on here, so the people that take headlines will go and run with it. I don't know what we gave them. I imagine what I said about working with the Athletic Commission and wanting to get on the docket and give a presentation. I imagine that will get misconstrued, misquoted, and that will make the headlines. But I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see what they go with.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that there's somebody out there that'll take it and fuck it up. And, that's just what happens.
Sure. No, sure, man. That's welcome to MMA.
But as long as you say my name right and you spell it correctly, we can talk.
I'm in that same boat, and I know that you are when you say it, and you got to have pretty thick skin. But most people that say that don't mean it. They get their feelings. Like, I've had more people. I've had you offend more people that I know. You got yelled at one time. Where were we, in Atlanta? That was the Jones Rashad fight.
Yeah, Jones versus Rashad. That was a bunch of bullshit. I got blamed for leaking pictures of that ring card.
But I didn't even know what was going on.
No, yeah. So now you tell this story, because this is an interesting story. Like, Dana's on a private jet coming in, and he's not worried about the live gate. He's not worried about Jon Jones. He's worried about Front Row Brian's ticket got revoked.
No, who was that? Dana? What I was talking about was I don't actually know that. Maybe you'll have to tell that part of the story. I was talking about being in an elevator with you when Karen and her husband got on.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I remember Wade yelling at you, and I was standing there going, "Now, what exactly is he?" I didn't know the backstory, and I still don't totally know it. You handled it calm and cool, but my point is, you've got me in more trouble than I could shake a stick at, and it's been worth it. It's been worth it. You're a loyal, good friend, always fun, always entertaining, which is why this podcast is going to do so well. This is where you belong. You belong in a podcast. You've amassed so many Twitter followers, often on speculation, which you end up getting right, often with inside scoop that you end up revealing first. But, I remember I broke some story on UFC Tonight, and it's back to what I was telling you, a good media member will always say his source. He won't just steal something as his own. I remember saying, I got this from Front Row Brian. And I can't know what the story was, but I revealed it. And I remember my Twitter lit up with your loyal Front Row Brian-aholics. They were like, yeah, it's about time that guy gets mentioned. You've been stealing his stuff forever. It's about time you say his name. And I remember thinking, well, I would have said it, or I didn't know. I'm so new to media, I didn't know that's how it worked. I didn't know that, it's kind of an obvious one now, but it's not. You don't know anything until you know it.
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Atlanta, man. That was a trip. I remember that like it was yesterday. We're on that elevator, and it starts out, Karen is talking about Matt Lindland, because he had said something, because this was right after she was doing something with Rampage, an interview, and something about motorboating, which, I don't know anything about. I don't know, maybe the kids are doing it these days. Something like that. I don't know. But,
I know what it was. I saw it. It was a video.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay, so Matt said something, he has his opinions, and nobody's going to tell Matt Lindland what to think or what to say. I mean, he's Matt Lindland for a fucking reason. And you're like, so she says to you, hey, why is Matt saying all this stuff? And this is like, you hadn't been training with him, you hadn't been coached by him for a while, and you're just like, well, I don't know, what's he saying? And then she goes into this thing about how he was disparaging her marriage or something, and then she points to me and she says, and douchebags like him, and then her husband gets in my face. This is on an elevator, mind you, and
yeah, so which means there's only like 10 or 15 seconds. It's just it's in and out. The door's closed, the door's open.
Right, and then there's a girl who comes on the elevator who's bawling her fucking eyes out. Do you remember that part?
Absolutely, I remember her. Because you and Wade were face to face, which you have to be in an elevator anyway, right? There's no space. But I remember he was getting on you, and I didn't know what was going on. I'm like, okay, I don't understand. Is this a joke? Is this real? And then that girl starts crying and telling us how some guy just broke up, but she was having some kind of relationship issues.
Oh, for sure.
And so all of this is happening in a 10 to 15 second elevator ride to get to the room.
Yeah, and he's in my face, and I think I said I train full contact 5 times a week, so watch your ass, buddy. Because he had just gotten caught on a MiddleEasy.com video yelling at somebody how he was such a badass because he trained full contact 4 times a week. So I had seen that video, and then like within 24 hours they had taken it down because he called them up and begged them to take it down because he looked like such a bully. And so I one-upped him 5 times a week. I say, you still want to get my face? And then the girl ruined my spot. When
the girl started crying, yeah, that's why I didn't totally hear what you and Wade were doing, because the bawling girl was. I was like, "Wait, what do we do here? Do you throw an arm around her and say, hey, what's wrong?" Yeah, I didn't know. It's just a stranger who was having a breakdown.
And to Karen's credit, she did actually console the girl. Remember, she was in the fetal position crying, and Karen just kind of kneeled down and kind of consoled her. But so that's, you see, that could have been buried too. But then, somebody told me that she was still saying ridiculous stuff, that I criticized her because she's half black or something like that. And then, she called herself the Rosa Parks of MMA, and everything is a race issue with her. And that's why, we're almost talking here 3 years later, and it's it's still a topic of discussion, because after that happened, she kept on, not publicly because she can't get away with that working for Fox, but privately saying to people that I have respect for, disparaging me, which is another reason why I don't like another person that I won't mention who's disparaging me to you.
No, I hear you, and we should probably get off it, because it was a long time ago. I think you guys have, for the most part, buried the hatchet. I wasn't trying to restart that. I was just saying in general, you've always been open. I guess that's what I'm saying. And even if you're an agitator, you've always been open. Whether you were going after Josh Barnett or whatever it was, and people should follow you on Twitter. They should follow this podcast, because you do have scoop, you do have inside stuff, and above everything, you're a character. You're a character in the world of MMA, and there aren't enough. And that was my only point. I didn't mean to go off on the elevator, the Karen Wade thing.
You didn't want the whole story.
No, but I don't mind. I don't mind. All I'm saying is, I think where we got on this was I was talking to you about, don't limit what you talk about. If you have a guest on, you always need to respect your guest. If he says, hey, stay away from something, sometimes you have to do that. It's just a courtesy. But, the best is when you don't ask. It's like when we asked Dana, it was out of a courtesy, but he would always come back with, no, ask me and don't tell me the questions ahead of time. Ask them, record them, and my answer is my answer. I'll live with it, you live with it.
Well, Vince McMahon has a great saying, and he said, as long as it's live, nothing wrong can happen. And I started to think about it, and I was just like, he's got something. Because
tell me your interpretation of that saying. What does that mean?
Because you can say, well, I meant to fuck up. Yeah, I meant to do it. That's part of the show.
Sure.
Is that your interpretation?
I think that's a fair interpretation. I can tell you on a different aspect. You know, it's like Jim Ross was telling me. We either show together that was live. See, here's the thing in America. It's this new thing that came out like 15 years ago. I was alive when it happened, but the big thing was to be a name caller. On a really bad level, though, you know, call someone a chauvinist or a sexist. Call them something really terrible. That's the new thing. So now everybody's so scared. And you know, Jim Ross was kind of saying, hey, listen, this is television. It's entertainment. You know, Al Pacino can go on TV and sell cocaine and chop people up with machetes. It's not real. This is entertainment.
Yeah.
You know, where's your sense of that? Where's your sense of this on TV? And loosen up a little bit. Don't get confined by these restraints that you're going to get called certain names and labeled certain ways. And I think maybe that's a different way of saying what Vince was saying. I don't know. It's like poetry. I guess we're left to interpret the meaning.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, it's one of those things, even for me on a small scale, had to develop some thicker skin, because I'm like, hey, you know, part of your thing is calling people out. So don't dish it out if you can't take it. But that doesn't mean I'm going to take it lying down. And that's just for me, somebody at my level, and I can only imagine how many times it's magnetized when you're in the public eye like you are.
Sure. You know, but you are a little bit unique, and I'll tell you why. Like, I get called out all the time. You know, that's what Twitter is. And I'm a Twitter guy. I don't go to Facebook and all that, but I like Twitter, and it is social for me. You can interact. It can be a two-way conversation. You can say something, somebody can say something back.
It's a way to get the pulse, right? It's a way to get the absolute brutal truth, the pulse of the situation. I guess that's the beauty of it.
I'll tell you, you know, darn near 100% of the time, I've never met a person face-to-face that had something bad to say. It's just never happened. Now, if I did, if somebody came up to me and they said some insulting thing, I would do nothing. I would not touch that person. And I don't think I would even argue with them back. Maybe a little bit, but probably for the most part, I'd let them say their piece, even if it was unpleasant, and that'd be the end of it. But I don't ever see those people. They don't ever come up to me and say, it just doesn't happen. You're one of the guys that will say something and then go to the show. You'll stay in the host hotel. You'll go meet the guys. You will go face-to-face. And if somebody wants to call you on something, you're there. And, you know, that's one of the rarities with somebody that is a character like you that does enjoy not only breaking scoop, but agitating, is they never show up. They hide behind a rock. You go to every UFC there is. I don't know if the listeners know that. I don't know if people know that about Front Row Brian. I mean, you're at all the events. You're flying around the country. I don't think you've ever missed a pay-per-view since 2009. It could be earlier than that. And you even go to a lot of the house shows. So
sure,
if somebody wants you to answer for what you said, you're there. You and Josh Barnett, for that matter, are eventually going to meet. You eventually are going to cross paths. It's not like you're not going to go to an event because he might be there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah. Anyway.
Maybe at the next Metamoris. When is the next Metamoris?
The next Metamoris, the date hasn't been released, but it's in May. It was, I think, originally scheduled for March. It got moved to May. They've got it locked down. And Halleck told me, and now I can't remember. But it's not released anyway. Tickets aren't for sale.
Is it still going to be in that tent?
I hope so. I hope it's in that tent. I love that venue. And, you know, for me, tents are cool. Only cool things happen in tents, right? Whether it's a memory of going to the circus or whether, you know, it's your dad taking you camping. Only cool things happen in a tent. You don't set up a tent unless there's something neat going on there. And I think at first he was a little self-conscious about the tent. Like it looked, you know, cheap or something like that. But I disagree. I'm like, you know, only cool things happen in tents. You know, when the circus comes down and sets up the tent, you can't see what's going on in there unless you buy a ticket, but it makes you want to buy a ticket. I like it. You know, he's only got 700 tickets to sell. He sells out every time, and so eventually the show will outgrow that place. You know, you got one of two choices. You either go to a bigger venue and sell more tickets, or you up ticket prices.
Right.
But it comes back to supply and demand. He's got a big demand, particularly in Los Angeles. It's a major hotbed for jiu-jitsu. I don't know if he would come to Oregon, that it would do as well. But there's some pockets in the country where it does, and he's in one of them.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's where the Gracies went, right? When they came here in the early '80s, they went to Torrance.
Yeah, that's still home. Yeah, that's where Hoyt. That's where they still all live out there. So not all of them. They're spread out. Hins was doing his thing on the other side of the country, but yeah, man, large part of that family's right there. They set up shop in their backyard in many ways.
So let's wrap it up with next episode, or what's coming up on You're Welcome. Who's going to be on?
Well, You're Welcome is coming out this Wednesday. Michael Bisping's on. And he's always great, because he's another one of those guys. He doesn't filter it. He'll come right after you. He'll say what he wants to say, and he's fun. He's just a really fun guy, and he and I can keep each other honest because if he ever gets out of line, I can always pull out the hey, I beat you. But he can always pull back on me and go, hey, I won that fight and they screwed me. So we keep, and I don't know that I disagree with him. It was a close fight. So we keep each other honest on that. He can pull that one on me. I can pull my line on him. So, he can come at me as hard as he wants, and he does. And I think he's just a fun guy. He's a friend. He's a buddy. We went from combatants to friends. And he's now training at the gym that I consider my team, which is out there at Rain with Mark Munoz. So, at any rate, it's Bisping, and the following week I'm going to have Rashad Evans on. Oh, cool. Yeah, Rashad doing a great job. We can also keep honest because we have such a back-and-forth brawl. Yeah, that was such a close contest. I think they had it for you 30-27, right? Is that it? I think that's how they had it on the cards when the referee decided to stop it. Right when I was coiling up in a ball, getting ready to spring all over that bomb. I mean, I don't know why they stopped it. You were just playing possum. I was playing possum. They fell for it. I was doing the rope-a-dope. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know why they stopped it. That was a rough night. Yeah, it was a rough night. I've almost blocked it from my memory. You'll do that sometime. I had another rough night. I fought a guy named Damian Maya. Damian Maya was on this hot streak where he was submitting everybody. And I was on a bit of a streak myself. I'd just come off a win over Paulo Filo, who was ranked #1 in the world. Yeah, and, UFC 95. Oh, man, I felt great, too. You talk about going to the match and whether you feel good or you don't feel good. I felt great. And practice was great, coaching, everything. Everything was great. Weight cut, everything. Right down the line. Check them right off the box, one after the next. And I got rolled up so fast. He hit me with a punch, one of the hardest I'd ever been hit. Threw me down, just did everything. And this is all into a couple of minutes. And it was so bad that I kind of blocked it from my memory. I forget that it even happened. When I think of my career at middleweight, I had so much success at that weight, and I forget all the time that I'm like, oh, wait a minute, except for that one match. I talk about how dominant I was at that weight class, and I was. But you got to throw that match out. If it's a curve like school where you're graded on a curve, I got to throw that match out. And I often do. I just don't let it into my bubble. I just block it from memory. I still don't. Well, I guess I know now because he punched you really hard. But when he lifted you off the ground, I was just like, "Are you shitting me? How the fuck did that happen?" I remember when that happened. Yeah, I barely remember it. It was so quick, but I remember going through the air like as I'm coming down back to the canvas and thinking, "How did he just do that?" Like, I remember thinking, "What was that move?" And now I'm on bottom, and I haven't spent a lot of time on bottom, and I didn't predict spinning it there in that match. He was, particularly at that time, he still is, but particularly at that time, he was get up on bottom guy, and then he wouldn't try to submit you. He was always a sweeper reversal, and he was great, and that's how he would get on top, is he would end up letting the guy take him down, that's how he'd bring the fight to the ground, and then he would get some kind of a scramble going and come out on top. And that's just how I saw that match going. And I remember that. I remember flying through the air thinking, nice move. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he had submitted like 5 guys in a row or something, and then didn't submit another guy for 5 or 6 years. Something crazy.
It was either 5 guys in a row, or I
seemed...
was number 5. And he got sub of the night every time.
Right.
That's 5 straight of the night awards.
Yeah. Seemed like such a good guy, too. Such a good sport. I remember that press conference in Chicago. And it was just, he could have totally hijacked you. Could have been like, hey, I submitted this guy less than a year ago. What the hell is he talking about? You know, but he let you, you know, get your lines out, and he was respectful, you know, because he was fighting Weidman that night.
Yeah, great dude.
Yeah.
He was a great dude. He and still is. You know, I didn't like when he went to 170. I think in this sport, the lower you go, the harder it gets. I think you know, the bigger guys are the less athletic, certainly slower. And all of that, I always thought it was better, you know, go bigger. And the general idea, whether it's wrestling, boxing, MMA, is how low can you go? And then guys just take off as much weight as they can. They diet, they starve, they dehydrate, they do everything to weigh in as small as they can. And I've always thought, you know, you're going about it wrong. Bigger is better when it comes to fighting. And when he went to 170, he's had a good level of success. I just remember thinking, man, why are you going to 170? And he got so frustrated with himself after Weidman beat him. And he talked about it, how poorly he was fighting, and how poor everything was, and then he drops to 170. And I'm sitting there on the outside going, dude, no. This Weidman may not be the most known guy in the world, but this is the baddest dude out there right now. I remember telling you that early on, going, hey, this is the guy. You know, if I bring Anderson down, this is the guy that
you
that
told
I
me
got to worry about.
You told me that I guess in 2011, late 2011, you said that everybody knows he's the best guy. The guys in the room.
Yeah, the guys in the locker room knew. The guys in the locker room didn't want to cross paths with Weidman. But Weidman was a humble guy. He still is. You know, he's coming out of his shell a little bit, but he's a pretty humble guy. He really was back then, and Maya fell for it. When Maya lost him, and what was a very competitive match, that was a good, close match. Weidman won all 3 rounds, but they were close. And Maya got so down on himself, and it's like, dude, if I had this guy's phone number, I'd call him and just tell him my opinion, which is, hey, man, I think you just fought the best guy in the world, okay, and you fought him close. Maya, still to this day, is one of Chris Weidman's closest and hardest fights.
Yeah.
Ever. You know, the only one that maybe, if you were to ask Chris, maybe he'd say Machida, but it'd be one of those 2 guys. It'd either be Machida or Maya. And Maya, because Weidman didn't have that big name, got down on himself. And I'm watching it from the locker room going, hey, man, you fought really well. You just don't understand who you just fought. You know, Bonner did the same thing when he lost to Jon Jones. He thought it was all over. You know, this young kid with only 1 fight comes in and puts it on, and it's like, yeah, you know, you might need a little time to go by, but I think that performance is going to look better and better with time.
I think he's, other than Gustafsson, he's given him the toughest fight of anybody that John's fought.
According to Jon, when interviewers ask him what his hardest fight is, he still to this day says Bonner. Now, I think he's lying. I think he doesn't want to give Gus the credit. I think the right answer would be Gus, but according to Jon, who's the guy that gets to make the final decision on this, it is Stephan Bonner.
Yeah, but I mean, there's only been one time he's been carried out, and that was UFC 159 in Newark. You know, you walked out of there, what, a little cut on your nose? He got carried out.
That's right. That was another situation. I was getting ready to spring all over him. Yeah, man, that's just a tough dude. You know, Jon Jones is just a tough guy. He doesn't get credit for that. He gets credit for being really good. And athletes are generally one or the other. You're either really tough or you're really good. It's not often that you're both. And Jones is both. You know, we saw a big opportunity there. We thought there was an opportunity to push the pace, get in the later rounds, tire this guy out, make him quit. And I never got that far with him, but Gustafsson sure did. Glover Teixeira, you know, they pushed hard for 25 minutes, and Jon was the one leading the dance. Or you talk about my night, you know, his bone comes poking through his skin. Gruesome. Terrible, terrible injury. And he shows up at the press conference. No doctors, no hospital, wraps it up in the back. his coaches or himself or whatever. He shows up at the press conference. There's a whole press conference before he goes and gets medical attention. You can't say a guy that does that isn't tough. You can't do it. That's a tough guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty amazing right there. And then the Gustafsson fight answered all the questions. Maybe he took him a bit lightly, and then we saw what he did to Shera, and then this fight with DC. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. I can tell you from sparring with DC and fighting Jon Jones, they're not that close. Jon is much better, much bigger toolbox. But DC is a winner. He's never been beaten, 15-0. Heavyweight and light heavyweight. No one's ever stopped him. And, there's something to a guy that knows how to compete, and he knows how to compete. He knows how to win. He knows how to control time and space. He understands the clock's ticking down. He knows it's a 10-9 must system. He knows how to win. And, from a competitive standpoint, they're both winners. But I think that's what makes it interesting. I think that's what gives DC the biggest chance. Not physically. Physically, it all goes to Jones. Length, speed, youth, everything, Jones. But DC's got a couple of pluses in the column, too. And the first is he's a winner. He's a champion.
Yeah, it'll be interesting if we can just push him up against the cage.
Yeah.
I don't think that Jones is not,
I think there's a huge regret that they never put Anderson Silva and George St. Pierre together. I know there is by the fans, but I think even by the company and by the industry, I think that fight was coming. They were waiting and letting it marinate, letting it set, letting the demand grow. And there's never been a crossing of champions. We've never unified belts like boxing does. We have our divisions. And the company is always promoted within its division. But we also didn't used to do women. We didn't used to do featherweights and strawweights and all these different, the bantamweights rather. And it's changing. The industry changed. Eventually there is going to be a super fight. And I think that Weidman, I think that opportunity's now. I think that's where he should be going. And he started down that road. They both got asked, and Jon Jones said no. Jon Jones said, I would go up and fight Kane. I don't have an interest in going down and fighting Weidman. And Weidman said yes. Weidman said, I'll do it. These guys are both killers. Weidman's the undefeated one. They're both world champions. But if the story got written today, who the best fighter of all time is, and that's just an argument. You never know who's the best. It's purely an argument. But a strong part to the argument for the Weidman supporters is that Weidman said yes to the fight. And Jones said no.
Yeah, but don't you think Jones...
They would use that.
Don't you think Jones was right? Because, why do you accept a challenge from a lower weight class? Isn't that the right thing? Yeah, I do think
John's right. And I also think that I think that John's the best fighter in the world right now. I'm just saying, if you're going to sit around, you're going to discuss fights, and you're going to make these arguments that are fictional, that we never know about, right? Fedor from 2003 versus Kane. It's all fictional crap that you could never prove. But if you're going to sit around and debate that, I think that argument comes up. And I think that's a push that they could both make, and and have a huge fight someday. Weidman doesn't have a huge partner right now. Vitor's big. That's going to do great. I'm excited for it, but I was more excited a while ago. The fight got postponed. It got pushed off. I just think there's an opportunity. I think Jacare. Jones has a couple of guys, but Jacare's coming up. I think if he has another fight, that'll help build anticipation, but. You're right, there's fights. I'm not saying there's no fights. I'm just saying I think there's an opportunity, and to dismiss it by going, they don't do, they don't unify belts, they don't do that. That's true, they haven't done that. But I don't know that they want it. I think that someday it would happen, and I think the one that's most likely to happen is Weidman versus Jones. I think that's more likely than Weidman versus Johnny Hendricks or Pettis versus Aldo or any of that.
Yeah, I think it's going to take the right personality too, because the last real super fight that we had was BJ Penn and GSP 2 at UFC 94, which Jones and Bonner was on, and I think that was just because BJ doesn't care. He's going to fight. He wants to fight the best guys, or he doesn't want to fight. Now, there's not a lot of guys who will say, well, Weidman did say it to his credit, I'll go up to 205. I don't have any problem. Usually they're saying, let's meet in the middle. And then the guy at the heavier weight is just like, no, please.
Yeah, Yeah, that's true. That's true. They generally do. And there is something to that. You know, if you're the heavier guy, I don't think it looks good to call out smaller guys. I don't blame anyone for not accepting or doing that. But, you know, it's still there. And like I said, it's purely a speculative talking point anyway, but it's going to get brought up.
And I don't think a lot of people realize, I mean, Weidman is a big guy. He's every bit a 6'2", and Jon is a legitimate 6'4". They look very similar in their... a lot of people think Jon is a really big light heavyweight. I mean, he doesn't get above 230 pounds, even when he's, you know, not training much.
Yeah. No, he doesn't.
You know?
Jon hangs out about 225. Which if you put he and I next to each other, he looks a lot bigger. But he's not. If you go get on a scale, you go, man, he's not. But he looks it, because like you said, he's so tall and long and stuff. But, yeah, and Weidman's a huge guy. The thing with Weidman also, if you're breaking out a fight, if you're a coach, where's Weidman's weaknesses?
Well,
I mean, he doesn't get taken down. He's not getting submitted. No, he doesn't have any. And offensively on his feet, man, he's a great striker. And he really bobs and weaves and flips well. You know, people throw punches at him, including Machida, and he gets out of the way. You know, he moves. Defensively, as a boxer, he's just excellent. He's really, really hard to hit. Machida even threw his knee, it's a patented knee. When Machida throws it, it always lands. He didn't land it. He threw it too, and Weidman sidestepped it. He's got really good. He's got really good timing defensively. So if you're breaking him down, you're trying to figure out how you're going to beat Weidman. It hasn't been shown yet. We don't know yet. We don't know yet how to beat him.
He's just a natural. Everything came together so quickly for him. That, you know, he was in Abu Dhabi, 18 months into training. He picked up striking, you know, like it was nothing, and he was a one-time All-American, I think, at Hofstra.
I think that's right. I don't think he wrestled at Hofstra all 4 years. For some reason, I want to say he came through the junior college. I don't know why.
He was at Nassau Community.
Okay, so he was in a community.
Yeah.
But he was fifth in the country. He's got wins over Phil Davis, over Ryan Bader, just to mention some names that people would know. You know, he's beaten those guys, so he can wrestle for sure.
Yeah, and he's so powerful on top. I mean, he doesn't just keep busy on top. He's throwing bombs. He wants to hurt you.
Yeah, and he's got a finishing series. He's got a finishing series all off of the Darce choke, where he's got a few different things that he'll do with it, but he's attacking it. And Mark Molina said that when he fought him. He said, you know, when he got me down, it was kind of a surprise, but he said he was so strong on top. And he tried that Darce series. He went right to Mark's head and arm and had him trapped and was looking for it. Mark was fighting out of it, but Mark commented, man, and Mark's so powerful and strong. That's an explosive. That's why it was a kind of a surprise when he said it, but he just said, man, Weidman was so powerful on top.
Yeah.
And he looks it on TV. I've never worked out with him. He looks like he's a powerful guy, but he's also methodical. He's not Mr. Speed. And those slower, more methodical guys aren't generally the ones that give you the problem on top, but he does.
Sure. All right, man. You're the man. Thanks for...
I am the man. Congrats on your new podcast, buddy. I'm excited for you.
We'll see how this thing goes, and, you know, some people, a bunch of people, you know, you and Weidman and Jon Jones and a bunch of other, Askren will be on next week, so a bunch of people want to talk to me. We'll see, man, where this can go and if it goes anywhere, you know, and if nothing else, then I'll just do this because I'll talk about it anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. No, you won't have a problem getting guests. You'll have people come on and want to blast you. If I were you, I'd call up Josh Barnett, send him a tweet. He would come on. You know, he likely would come on. Yeah, but you know, it's still good, solid entertainment, even if he's yelling at you. You know, Josh is a smart, quick-witted guy. Not a lot of guys battle with him verbally and do well, but who cares? You know, you're having fun. You're doing your thing. Who cares?
Yeah. I hear you. All right, man. Again, thanks for all the time, and
you're welcome for my time. I'm a wonderful guy. I'm a humanitarian. I'm a giver of my time.
Yeah, you helped your buddy out and to try to get over it, and
what a great guy.
Yeah.
I picked up the phone. Hooray for me. All right, see you, buddy.
You're welcome. All right, later, man.
Goodbye.
All right. That was Chael Sonnen on the FRB show. That went a long time, like 2.5 hours. I don't know if Adam's mic is still going. Well, on the debut show of the FRB show, I promised some very special guests, and this next guest is just that. He's the holy thug, the Ozone Park Republican, and the man who coined the phrase bald bozo fuck, Bloodstain Lane. How you doing, brother?
What's up, Front Row, Brian? And I'm glad that you said the Ozone Park Republican. That's very, very old school. I haven't said that in a long time, so I know you've been following for a while.
A long time, man. I think 2009, that infamous show in Nashville when Mayhem Miller caused that brawl with the Diaz boys. Was that?
Yep. And that's it. That's pretty accurate. Yep, that's around that time frame. And you know, the Ozone Park Republican was pretty much my standard AKA, because I was doing YouTube videos on another channel that doesn't exist anymore, and that was always my my AKA name. So I'm pretty impressive that you mentioned that.
Oh, I've been there since the start, man. I heard you on Eddie Goldman's show. I think you guys were at a Hooters in Manhattan or something and just bullshitting. And I was like, this guy sounds interesting. He's a character. I love characters. And you knew what you were talking about. You knew every combat sport.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, part of the character, comes from coming from Queens, New York, and being an avid pro wrestling fan, obviously, growing up, I looked up to people like Andrew Dice Clay, Howard Stern, the Jerky Boys, and then, I just got a lot of my aura from, people I grew up with and seen. I grew up in a mafia-type neighborhood. I lived right across the street from John Gotti's club. And, all that, helped mold who I am today. And, as far as combat sports, I've been a combat sports fan since, I'm 6 years old, watching Mike Tyson fight Larry Holmes, up into the SCG era of UFC, watching K1 on ESPN too. So, I would say I'm, a well-schooled and, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, for sure. And I love on Instagram all those random old-school 1980s WWF characters you'll put up there. It brings back some good memories, because that's really how I got into this. And we're almost the same age. I'm 32. And so I started getting into it late 80s. And I think the first match I saw, Saturday night's main event, Mike Tyson was supposed to be the referee, I think between Hogan and Macho Man. But Buster Douglas had knocked him out in Tokyo. So Vince McMahon brought in Buster Douglas. And I saw that on NBC, and I was like, this is awesome. And I've loved it ever since. And it kind of got me into the other combat sports, boxing, and then MMA. I think it's a natural progression.
Oh, of course. And, you definitely have pro wrestling elements to you, you know what I mean? You can tell by the way you deliver your, when you want to deliver a message, you have a lot of pro wrestling elements to you. And, like I said, it definitely helped molded us into definitely the MMA world in particular, you know what I mean? Especially the early UFC days, SCG days.
Yeah, and when you first started putting out those video blogs, you kind of had an anti-UFC stance. I thought it was a pretty cool angle, or maybe it was a shoot. I don't know, but you were kind of counterculture, and I think that's why you got so popular in such a short period of time. Was that shtick, or was that's just what you liked at that time?
No, that was a shoot, and that's the way I really feel. That's how I feel to this day, And I just don't like the way they operate. I don't like certain things they've done to the sport. That being said, as of today, as of me analyzing and sitting back, at the end of the day, when you're a business, you got to do what you got to do, and the UFC and what I like, I was more about the Pride and the JMMA. Honestly, they're just two completely different sports altogether. Like Pride was more about action, and the referees would stand you up, and it's more Vale Tudo style. And UFC, the rules are more towards wrestlers, and there's nothing wrong with that. And looking back a couple years ago, and I was upset about it. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't stop a takedown, then don't participate in the sport. You know what I mean? That's how I look at it. You know, and to me, Pride, you know, as much as I love Pride, it was more about action than the actual, you know, full combat MMA. Because you know, in a real fight, if a wrestler takes you down, there's not going to be no referee to stand you up. You know, so if you can't stop it or you can't scramble up back to your feet, and frankly, you know what, I don't really like that style when I'm watching. I'd rather have action. But hey, that's the nature of the business. And if you can't stop a takedown, you can't get up, and a wrestler takes you down, and don't do the sport. You know, so that's why I said Pride. Looking back now, Pride was a completely different sport than UFC is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Pride was essentially professional wrestling, and you know, from what I've read, in Japan there is no distinction between professional wrestling and MMA. They're the same thing, and they're treated the same. So you know, that's how it was presented, and I'm kind of excited because we have that element now with Bellator. I see a lot of the inspiration from Pride, you know, from Coker. And I can remember 2011 Heavyweight Grand Prix. I don't think I met you at that one, but I can just remember coming home thinking, wow, they got something going here. You know, this was February 2011. And then 1 month later, they sell the fucking thing. And it was just like, God damn. You know, this was just getting interesting.
Yeah, and it was crazy because at the time, this is like, I think I was at probably the peak of my vlogging. You know, I was really, really hot. I actually met with Shannon Knapp, and she offered me a job for Strike Force. And we were going to have a meeting. And then, you know, obviously they, I don't know what I was going to do. You know, but they were going to, you know, she was going to give me something, you know. And, you know, before that I was working with M1 Global under the table, you know. They were paying me under the table to promote their, you know, their shows and their fighters. And listen, at the end of the day, listen, I was a big Fedor fan. I wasn't so much a fan of, you know, the M1 product or the fights they put up. But, you know, if I can make money, you know, and just do a little promotion, I did it. You know what I mean? And, you know, then that, you know, helped those the Strike Force. Like I said, I was in, you know, Shannon Knapp offered me a job with Strike Force. That didn't pan out. But, you know, at the end of the day, UFC did what they had to do. And, you know, people have been telling me about Bellator, and I've been kind of out of the loop in MMA as of late. I've been focusing on other things, but you know, I trust your word, so I'm gonna start checking it out.
Yeah, it's a different business model. They're gonna do about 12 shows a year on Friday nights, and then like 4 or 5 a year on Saturday nights, which are going to be their marquee events with the big stage and the WWE style. Titantron, or whatever you call it, you know, and with all the gimmicks, all the great lighting and stuff. So I think it blows anything that the UFC does away. It blows away Showtime. I mean, Showtime was awful. They wouldn't put any money into production.
You know what it is with UFC, and I've said it a couple times already, it's very generic to me. And it's the same entrances, and it's the guys with no characters, like, the fighters are all like fraternity frat boy assholes. You know what I mean? It's just no character. Like when UFC first came in with the SEG era, you had characters. It was almost like the movie Bloodsport. You had Tank Abbott coming straight to the ballroom brawl. You had Ken Shamrock, you know, who's a character himself. You had the Jiu-Jitsu Hoist Gracie, Dan Severn, Don Fry, Maurice Smith, Mark Coleman. It was almost like the movie Bloodsport in a way, and everybody had their own style, their own traditional martial art that they brought to the cage, and it was pretty much that's what it was. You know what I mean? So it was fun. It was fun watching that because it was like the movie Bloodsport coming into fruition. Then when you went into you know, the Pride days, like you said, Pride was 50% pro wrestling and 50% you know, MMA, and it was the same thing there. You know, you had the Lance Emperor, you had Mirko Krokop, you had Sakuraba, you know, coming out with the wrestling mask. So it appealed, you know. With the UFC, it's just they don't have like the stars, or you know, it's lacking something. It really is, and it's to me, you know, coming from a pro wrestling background, you know, that's what I look forward to. Even though it's not realistic, it's what I like. You know, I like guys that are characters. I like guys that stand out and and try to sell themselves. You know.
Yeah, I used to think I was about the competition, that I just wanted to see the pure exhibition of the sport. I was just about, who was the best guy in the cage. And in the past year or so, I've just been like, I'm so sick of that. I don't want to hear people break down fights. I want characters. I want guys that can cut a promo and get me emotionally invested in the outcome of the match. And that's professional wrestling. That's the only reason why people would watch a work match, because somehow the performers gave them a reason to get emotionally invested, and they did that through their promos. There's only a few guys in the UFC.
And then you even had guys that were just quiet, like Fedor was just a quiet guy, but just his aura alone, and then even some of the characters that he was surround himself with, the two Russian Orthodox priests with the fucking big beards, and it was just like it was cool, man. Everybody had their own little thing, and it was like I said, I'm not saying I'm all about the competition too, and that's really what it boils down to. But I just don't want to see two college frat boy type assholes like Uriah Faber and some other jerk job that looks like him, fucking wrestling. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I like wrestling. People have this misconception that I don't like wrestling. If you watch my exhibition MMA fight I had with Sean Obasi, I used wrestling the whole fight. I took the guy down, I neutralized him. I love the aspect of wrestling, but at least be a character, man. Mark Coleman was a character. Chael Sonnen, they're characters. You know what I mean? It's like you said. It's that's what I like. And I don't care what anybody says. Stick to wrestling if you don't like it. Hey, listen, I'm going to voice my opinion regardless, and that's my preference. That's what I like.
Yeah, I wanted to, because you've had a very public, I guess, love-hate, maybe a lot more hate than love relationship with Dana White, or as you call him, bald bozo fuck. If you could just take us through, because you're one of the few guys on the internet who's been able to get his attention, and you must have been striking the right nerve, because he invited you to Philadelphia, I think, to fight him or something. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
All right. Well, first off, like I said, I'm from New York City, and I could spot a fraud from a mile away. And if you've seen Dana White back in the day, he had crooked teeth. He was a fucking dweeb with one string of hair that wrapped around his fucking head. Okay, he had a squeaky voice. Then all of a sudden, this guy's juiced out the gills, talking like some fucking Boston gangster. All right, listen, come on, man. I see through the bullshit. I know the guy's he's a dweeb. He's a geek, And I just didn't like the way he was bad-mouthing certain guys. He's bad-mouthing specifically, I mean, you could go down a list of guys, but specifically Fedor Emelianenko, who's an absolute legend of the sport. He's a guy that he's been nothing but a great role model, the way he carries himself, the way he handles himself. He's a true professional. And to have this guy just completely shit on this guy's whole entire legacy, make him seem like he's some sort of bum off the street. And this is why I came up with the term Zuffa Zombies, because a lot of the MMA fans in America only knew Zuffa. They only knew the UFC. They only knew like the Chuck Liddell, the Randy Couture, the Tito Ortiz. That's all they knew. And Dana White was the mouthpiece. So when you have a guy like Bald Bozo Fuck, Dana White, completely trashing guy, tarnishing his legacy, and then you see all the people around him just parroting what he's saying. And to me, it was despicable and disgusting the way you shit on such an iconic and legendary figure on the sport. That's like some sort of NBA commissioner, David Stern, shitting on Bill Russell or Bob Cousy. All these guys were bums. They played in a shitty era. They played in the guys weren't athletes back then. That's what it's so it's very similar to that. And to me, yeah. I just had it was disgusting. And then you see this white Billy Blanks fuck driving around in brand new cars. These fighters are getting paid $6,000, $4,000. It's disgusting the way they do things. You know what I mean? It's disgusting. I just don't like the guy. I honestly think he's a fraud. And I got to him. He flew me. He offered to fly me to Vancouver like a day before the fight. He offered and I didn't have a passport at the time, so I said I can't do it. We'll do Philly. So then I contacted him and hit him up. Like, we're still going to do this. No response. He blocks me. That was the end of it. So the guy's a jerk job, a certified jerk job.
But wasn't there a round two? You were supposed to do not boxing, but a grappling match somewhere in New Jersey, and Nick the Tooth was involved, and and he talked
actually,
a big game.
I was supposed to fight Nick the Tooth. Okay, Dana White put money up. He put money up and said he'll have Nick the Tooth fight. Okay, now me and Nick the Tooth are going back. I don't even know who the fuck this mutt was, Nick the Tooth. I seen some fucking guy. He looked like a clown to me. You know what I mean? So I'm going back and forth with him, and so it's getting heated, and some advertisements going up. People are getting hyped up for it, advertising the fight. So I'm ready to do this, man. And mind you, I'm not in the best shape of my life right now. You see the way I eat on Instagram. And, I'm a fat fuck right now. But at the end of the day, I can still throw I got fast hands and I got an iron jaw. The fight wasn't going to be 30 seconds anyway. I was going to put him to sleep. So I'm getting pumped up, and I'm ready to fight this fucking jerk job. Next thing you know, I get a DM. And he's fucking, ever since I got into this little skirmish with you, I've been getting a lot of bad press, and, certain things I was feeling comfortable, we can continue, the feud like we're actually going to do it, but I really don't want to fight you, he said. I said, you know what, the guy killed me with kindness. He was so nice, the guy. What am I going to do? You know what I mean? Like, he killed me with kindness. So I said, all right, man, no problem. You know what I mean? It's whatever.
Yeah, probably what happened was UFC's legal department, they got two guys there that make the decisions. One guy's named Mike Mersch. The other's guy, his name is Lawrence Epstein. And those guys are pretty much there to keep everybody in check. They probably heard that it was getting some negative publicity, and they were like, you gotta stop doing this. So... Yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, it's whatever. Like, I was ready to go. Dana White wanted to go. I was ready to go. Listen, fighting to me is nothing. It's like bending over and tying my shoe. I don't get nervous anymore. I've done it so many times. So, like, on site, I was ready to do it with these guys. But it didn't happen. Dana White blocked me like the fucking bald coward that he is. And I'm here now. And I was just getting sick of MMA after that. And especially the community. It's just a generic, no originality. And I was like, you know what? It's not for me no more. Plus, that's not what I'm about. Only I'm a very versatile person. I have a lot of interest. I have a lot of different things I want to talk about. I feel like, not to toot my own horn, I feel like I'm one of the best guys at cutting a promo, cutting a shoot. And I feel like, why limit myself to one thing? Why don't I just go at the whole spectrum of humanity? You know what I mean? And criticize the culture of the world, and criticize people that deserve to be criticized. I have the talent, from being a shit talker from New York, and watching wrestling, and I'm well schooled on how to use my mouth, and and just completely eat for something.
Yeah, you definitely have the gift for gab. I always thought that being a pro wrestling manager, I know they phased out managers, but if this was 1985, you would be central casting, with Bobby Heenan and Slick and Mr. Fuji and Bloodstain Lane. I think that.
And it's still something I want to do. It's still something I want to do, and I was talking to somebody about it that connected to a smaller organization, wrestling organization in New York. And it's really something I'm still considering. I already know what angle I'm going to take. I already know what I'm going to do, and I'm just waiting for the opportunity now.
Yeah, the talking about Dana kind of reminded me of something. It was actually the first time I think I met you, and it was Newark, New Jersey, UFC 128 when Jon Jones won the belt. And I'm there, and I'm like, Malky Kawa's there, who actually turns out to be, current day, a good guy. Malky Kawa's not a bad guy. But at the time, he was talking big, and I guess he had ruffled your feathers the wrong way. And you're right in a hotel lobby in Newark, New Jersey, ready to throw down on site. And I think you shook him, man, because I think he thought it was all, it was just all internet talk.
Malky Kawa, he's my boy. I consider him a friend now. He's a guy that I do like, and I talk to him, often. But back then, it was definitely it wasn't a joke, and it was a lot of people who were standing in the lobby might have thought it was, but it wasn't a joke. I didn't like the guy. He didn't like me, and there was some tussling. We got into some tussles, and you know what happened. We went into a back room, and we got into a little grappling match. You were there. It was just me and you with about 30 of his goons. We were outnumbered, and I went to war with him. You know what I mean? I went to war with him. You know, we didn't throw any hands, but we're wrestling. You know, submission wrestling. And like I said, not to toot my own horn, I got it. I got the match I was supposed to win. I won it. And you were there.
You won 2 out of 3. You won 2 out of 3 from what I remember, and you got the only finish of the 3 matches. You got
what happened was I got the first match was supposed to be the only match. I got the finish. The second one, I think he got me. I'm not gonna lie. I think he got me with a. I don't remember. You know what? You might remember more than me. And the third one, it was like a 30-minute Iron Man, and like nobody really won it. But like since he had the more dominant positions, his corner claimed that he won. It was whatever. I didn't give a fuck. Like 15 minutes before I grappled, I just ate a bacon cheeseburger with fries. I was drinking my own throw up as I'm tussling with the guy. You know, so it didn't really matter. You know, I consider the first one, the one we were supposed to do, I got the victory, so that's how I look at it.
Yeah. Malky is a good guy. He'll be on in the next couple weeks, and he said to me, like,
you know what? People have a misconception of him. He really, when you get to know the guy, like I said, he's really a good person. Back then, though, I actually despised him. You know, and
I mean, I actually had a pretty high profile. Yeah. I was going to say, I mean, I actually had a pretty high-profile guy ask me, hey, you know, I'm looking for a new manager. What do you think of this guy? I know you know him. And I said, you know, if I was a fighter or if I had a brother who was a fighter, I would sign with him. And he ended up signing with him. So, you know, it's funny in this industry, guys that can be kind of thorns in your side can become, you know, really close after time. You know, it's just funny how that works out.
Yeah, like I said, there's some good people and there's some pieces of shit in the industry. You know, as you know.
Oh yeah.
You know, but it is what it is. All I know is this: whenever I stepped in, you know, when I was always invited by fighters or to hang out with them, or how these people would shit their pants when they see me. Joe Silva would shit his pants. All these guys, they're all a bunch of fucking mutts to me. So I really don't care. You know.
Yeah, what about Misha Tate? I mean, she was all about the attention that you were giving her when you did that interview with her, and then what happened?
Let me tell you something about Misha Tate, okay? And you know what, people may not want to believe me, whatever. She was very flirtatious with me, okay? She used to text me. We used to talk behind the scenes. You know, she had an interest in me. You know, and a lot of people may not want to hear that, but it's the truth.
And Lane, let me just say this: you know, like 3 or 4 years ago, you were in a lot better shape. You know, right?
I was absolutely gorgeous.
I mean, you were.
You know,
women were into you.
My jaw. I had a chiseled jaw. I had, I was just breathtaking to look at. And Misha Tate was on my, she was on my shit. You know, she even hit me up to do a favor one time. She's like, she was like, hey babe. She texted me one night. And she was like, "Oh, can you?" And something I really regret to this day, Dylan. You know what I mean? She asked me to expose the nudes of another female MMA fighter. And I'm pretty sure you know who it is, Michelle Ould.
Oh yeah,
Is that how you say her name? Michelle Ould?
I don't know exactly the pronunciation.
O-U-L-D. Her last is O-U-L-D. Okay. And I did it, and Michelle Ould, who I was also kind of cool with, hit me up, and she's like, how can you do this to me, this and that, and, that kind of like, then I hit up Misha Tate back up, and I'm like, you know what, that was fucked up what I did, you had me do something, and we were doing it because, like, we were very flirtatious with each other, and, she would, it was whatever, and then after that, things got really sour between me and Misha Tate.
Yeah, but, I wouldn't feel so bad, because those pictures were on the internet for, adult websites. Those weren't personal pictures.
I know, but I still felt bad about it. Something I shouldn't have done. You know what I mean? And it was me being suckered by Misha Tate. Her being, I was being a jerk job. And I fell for the trap. Her flirtatious ways, and it's whatever, man. These female MMA fighters. Listen, I had accounts with a couple of them. All right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's whatever.
Yeah. Just a couple more things. I wanted to ask you about this religious awakening, and it's interesting because I've never seen you on a daily basis so happy. You seem like this new Bloodstain Lane. You still got your edge, but you're a little bit different. You're more at peace. You're more happy since this spiritual or religious awakening. how did this come about? And, tell us about it.
All right, well, everybody that's been following me for a long time, I'll go back to when I was younger. I grew up in a Catholic household, and I went to Catholic school my whole life. And, like I said, the Catholic Church, I never grasped it. You know what I mean? Or it didn't appeal to me the way their messages were sent and the statues and all that stuff. So I started going a different route when I became like a teenager, like maybe 16, 17. I got involved in a lot of conspiracy theories. I started reading William Cooper, David Icke, and Jordan Maxwell, and all these conspiracy theories. So I kind of strayed away from Jesus Christ and the faith that I came up in the Catholic Church. I would say this lasted for a good 15 years, up until probably February of this year, March of this year. And I had an incident back in 2012. And I know it's going to sound crazy what I'm saying, but it was almost like I was, something was talking to me, like some sort of dark deity that was trying to, it wasn't talking to me, but it was like, people are going to see like, oh, Bloodstain's a fucking schizophrenic or bipolar. I'm telling you exactly what happened. You know what I mean? And it was like trying to get me to do bad things and horrible things. I don't even want to talk about it. It was really bad. And, I said to myself, this lasted for about a week, and I said, I was getting very stressed out and depressed about it. And I just asked, I got on my knees and I prayed, and I haven't prayed to the Lord in a long time. And I said, please help me, please help me, get through this thing I'm going through. And, I got down on my knees and I prayed to Jesus Christ, and little, I was fine after that. And then, after that, I was, I stayed on course with, praying and reading the Bible. Then I strayed off again. I got back into the conspiracy theories with the reptilian and, all this conspiracy shit that you're into, shifting consciousness, mass awakenings or whatever. And, I was just a horrible, horrible person, man. I was bad. I was a cheater. I was a liar. I had a lot of hate and malice in my heart towards people. I was a very angry person. I didn't treat my girl right. And I didn't like who I was becoming. I was just not a good person. And then, I don't know, one day I just woke up, and it's weird. It's something that told me, everything I've been reading and everything I've been doing is a lie. All these books I've been reading is a lie. And it would just hit me, it's hard to explain. It's like something called me, like Jesus Christ called me to him. And ever since then, I was like, I study the Bible, I read, I pray, and I just feel like I have a more clear and precise vision of the truth and the reality now of things. And I can identify lies, and it's like I said, I don't want to say it's a supernatural thing that happened to me, but it's something that was very unique, and something that just happened when I woke up one day and I seen the truth. And the truth is that I am a born again Christian now. I believe that Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior, and I just feel like I'm in such a peace and ease now, and I can see things. And I'm still growing in my faith. I'm not perfect. I still sin from time to time. I have a filthy mouth that I have to work on, but I'm still growing. And I made a lot of improvements in other areas where I was, I was an absolute savage, a heathen.
So every once in a while, you might break down and pop in a Gianna Michaels DVD, or is that?
Yeah, you know what? Yes. Like for instance, I might have a breakdown. And the thing is this, people want to say, oh, right away, you're a fake, you're a fake Christian, fake this. First off, nobody's perfect. Only Jesus Christ was perfect. You know what I'm saying? If I was perfect, I wouldn't, I would be Jesus Christ. But we're all sinners. But I'm not, Brian, that you don't see me promoting pornography like I used to anymore. You know what I mean? You don't see me, putting it on my Instagram, promoting porn stars, talking about it, doing YouTube videos about it anymore. I mean, I might have that slip up where I might go on, ujiz.com and watch the Gianna Michaels scenes every now and then. But I made a lot of drastic improvements. And I know, this whole bit right now I'm doing, people are going to be like, oh, this kid's a fucking nut job. I really could care. You know very damn well I could care less what anybody thinks of me. I'm giving you exactly what happened. exactly word for word what happened to me, the experience that I had with some sort of dark deity. I don't want to say it was a demon or whatever it was. It was something bad, though, and something I only experienced one time in my life. So I'm not no schizophrenic. I'm not no bipolar person. It only happened one time in my life. And I was like under an attack. You know what I mean? And like I said, people could think what they want.
Now, do you have heat, just switching gears, something completely different, do you have heat with Paulie Malignaggi?
Hate?
No, heat.
Do I hate? Heat? I never liked Paulie as a fighter. If you want me to be quite frank with you, I never liked him. He reminds me, like, when you're from New York, he reminds you of the typical jerk job Italian from Bensonhurst, Bay Ridge, or Howard Beach. You know what I mean? And then, like, I just like, you know, his fucking Italian dude with dreadlocks. You know, just his whole style was trash to me. You know what I mean? And I'm not really a big fan of his style of fighting either. You know what I mean? That being said, I didn't hate the guy, and I kind of grew to like him for a little bit because he's from Brooklyn, and I got behind him for a fight one day, and, you know, it's whatever. And I ran into him at Nature's Grill in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, about 3 years ago, and we had a conversation. And I told him straight up, I'm like, yeah, I'm not, you know, I got to be honest, I'm not your biggest fan, but, you know, I want to, you know, I had a talk with him. And at that time, he was accusing everybody of being on steroids. Manny Pacquiao, this and that, even Floyd Mayweather. He went on a 10-minute rant about Floyd Mayweather, on how Floyd Mayweather's on the juice, right?
Yeah.
I even wrote an article about it, exactly in detail what he said when I had the Team Takeover website. For some reason, the Team Takeover website's down. I'm going to try to talk to Mike Hackler, who's the one who made the site, if he could recoup that article that I wrote, where Paulie Malignaggi just completely trashes Floyd Mayweather. He calls him every name in the book and accuses him of being on the juice. And don't get me wrong, he also accused Manny Pacquiao of being on the juice, but Floyd Mayweather was the main guy. So it just so happens that, you know, Paulie Malignaggi is a commentator on Showtime now, and seems like he's talking shit about everything on HBO. And Manny Pacquiao the other day was talking Manny's on the juice, this and that. So I called him out. I'm like, you know what? Like, you're signing Al Heyman, just like Floyd Mayweather signed Al Heyman. So you're making yourself look like, you know what I mean, like a puppet, an Al Heyman puppet right now. And I knew the truth because I knew what he said about Mayweather. You're going to trash Pacquiao and talk the shit you talked about Mayweather. He won't do it because he's fucking under Al Heyman's management, like Mayweather. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that guy's got some kind of mind control.
Yeah, exactly. And he didn't. And you know what? He didn't deny it. Have you seen the tweet? When I called him out, I'm like, you accused. He goes, oh, but what else did I say? So he basically admitted that he said that. You know what I mean? So yeah. I don't like that I don't like the two-faced shit. I don't like, just say what you want. These guys are all fucking puppets, man. They really are.
Yeah, I hear you on that, man. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you about, which you've been doing an excellent job of covering of late, is this incident or what's going on in Ferguson, Missouri. And to me, it's very clear. A lot of the medical examiner came back and said there was a struggle for a pistol, and one of the people wound up dead. And to me, it's a very unfortunate thing, and I don't wish any 18-year-old kid to die or anything, but you go for an officer's pistol and, all bets are off, and I don't care what the color of your skin is. And they had no case, and that's why he wasn't indicted. But, you've been lending some very good insight, so I'm interested to hear a little bit more about what you think about it.
Well, first off, I'm going to start by saying this. There is a PSYOP agenda taking place in America by the satanic elite within the black community, the African-American community. And they use the media, satanic elite uses the media to wind them up and start all kinds of shit. And what I mean by this is I did a video about a year and a half ago. I think it was called a PSYOP something. I forget what the title was. Where the media will take isolated incidents. And I think it was on the cover of the New York Daily News. They took 8 isolated incidents over the last 60, 70 years of a cop killing a black man. Okay? 8 isolated incidents over 70 years. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, we live in a fallen creation, a fallen world filled with sin and evil. There's going to be situations like this. But the media, the satanic elite uses the media to get the black community outraged, get them upset over certain things, and it works like a charm. And what they want is they want division. They want racial division. They don't want unity. They don't want that. They want to keep everything in a ruckus. They love it. Okay, now that's the first thing, and it works like a charm. And you know, you can see when they read the paper, on the cover of the paper, black people get all worked up and they get all fired up. But the thing that black people also need to look at, if we're going to be outraged. Be outraged about everything. Be outraged about the beheadings in the Middle East. Be outraged about the abortions that happen every fucking day. It's been 80 million abortions over the last 40 years. Be outraged about kids, child sex rings. Be outraged about the black-on-black crime in your own community, which skyrockets past any cop on black man crime. You know what I mean? It skyrockets.
Yeah.
94% of all black men killed are killed by other black men. Okay? So, you know, and there's nothing. You don't hear nothing. There's no protest. There's nothing. It's just another death. It's expected. Okay? No. Okay? You got to be outraged about the whole entire spectrum. Okay? And then, you know, if you listen to rap music, and like I said, I wrote an article about it, and I call myself a hypocrite. I also listen to rap music, where for the last 25 years, how many black men have been killed in rap lyrics over the last 25 years? You could match it up with the fucking Holocaust. It's been millions of black men have been killed in rap lyrics. Yet they love the music. They love listening to it. They love singing the lyrics. They love the song by a rapper named Bobby Shmurda, where he raps about his friend killing somebody a week ago, and everybody's doing a dance to that lyric. They're dancing to it. You're dancing to somebody rapping about murdering somebody. You know how sick and satanic that is? Well, people celebrate this shit. So it's
what do you think?
If you really want to change things, change the culture. Stop putting sin, stop putting wickedness, stop putting murder on a pedestal, and start promoting righteousness, start promoting positivity, and start, you know, putting artists on a pedestal, and it all comes into one. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, if you change the culture, things will change in your neighborhood. You know what I mean? But at the same time, don't be upset. I mean, of course, be upset. Excuse me. You could be upset about a black kid getting killed by a cop, but we must also observe and analyze each case specifically. Okay? In this case with Michael Brown, okay, Jesus Christ said to know them by their fruits. Okay? So judging by Michael Brown's fruits, 10 minutes before he got killed, he had no regard for the law. He was in a store, committed a strong-arm robbery, physically assaulted the clerk, walked out the store, and you figured after you commit a crime, you'd be a little bit more inconspicuous. You know, let's get out of here, we're going to hide. No, he's walking in the middle of the street like he's the king of Zamunda, okay? So this kid was wired up that day. He had no regard for nothing. So knowing by his fruits, we know that he was a thug, okay? Now, I'm not saying he deserved to get killed. I'm not saying that. But at the end of the day, we know he was fucking wired up that day. And we know from the evidence that he attacked a cop. And when you attack a cop, all bets are off, and you could get killed and shot. If I attacked a cop, I would expect to get shot. Okay? It's not a cop's obligation to drop his gun and shoot the fair one with somebody and throw hands with somebody. No, that's not his job. His job is to protect and serve, but he also has to protect his life if his life's in danger. Okay?
His job is to go home with a pulse.
And he has to go home to his family, too.
Yeah.
So, like I said, in this case, the media, the satanic media is and they use keywords. They use keywords. Oh, an unarmed team. And they keep repeating that. Unarmed, unarmed, unarmed. Listen to me. You know very damn well, you don't have to have a weapon to kill somebody. If I wanted to right now, you know, as sick as it sounds, I could go into the next room and kill my girlfriend with my bare hands. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I wanted to.
Right.
You know what I mean? You know, this kid was a big boy, 6'4", 300 pounds, okay? Unarmed or not. He attacked the cop, he hit the cop, he tried to wrestle the gun away from the cop, and he tried charging the cop again, running after him. Okay? You're a weapon. You yourself are a weapon. So they use keywords like unarmed. He's unarmed to make it seem like, you know, to get the black community even more outraged. They're very clever.
The other thing they do, Lane, is what's interesting is they use these very innocent-looking pictures of the victim. You know, they have him in his high school graduation, or even with Trayvon Martin, they show a picture of him when he was 12 years old, not when he was 17. And it's all a trick, you know, to hook you in that this bad white cop, you know, went out that day and said, I want to kill a young black kid. That's what I want to do today.
Like I said, Brian, they're very, very clever. The satanic media is very clever. And you know what? I'm trying to talk to my black friends, and they have them in a headlock, and they know how to get to them due to, you know, unfortunately there was bad history in this country. That cannot be denied. There was slavery in this country, and still is a bad taste in the history of America. But they know how to rile up the black community. And like I said, each case has to be. I got called a racist, by the way, which I'm the most. You know, it's funny to me when you don't agree with something. These fucking liberals, these left-wing pieces of shit, want to label you right away. Okay,
that's their go-to move.
Yeah, that's their go-to person. I'm a racist, whatever. Listen, you can label me whatever the fuck you want to label me, as long as you don't label me a fucking deadbeat father, or a fucking homo. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it is what it is. You know what I mean? And the tactics are very, very clever. And every case, you know, there's some cases where cops deserve to go overboard. Like I think the cop with Staten Island when he choked out the guy, Eric Garner, the big black guy. I think that was wrong. That was wrong. It was too much. It was too much. So each case has to be judged individually. But in this case, in Michael Brown, these fucking bozos want justice. What justice do you want? You don't even know what the fuck happened. What do you want? If you weren't even there, what justice do you want? That's not justice. That's an injustice if you lock a cop up just because you're angry. That's an injustice. That's not justice. Yeah. And then you got these fucking jerk jobs protesting, shutting down highways, shutting down bridges, If you had any fucking balls, you'd go to a government official building, or you'd go to a fucking police precinct and you protest. Don't shut up so hurt the average human being that has to go to work to feed their family. They have nothing to do with that. But these liberals have no fucking balls. They have no guts. And then you got plants. You got plants that are hired by the satanic government, the KKK, the Black Panther Party. They're all part of it. They're all with them. I believe they're paid actors. Or I believe that they're just, they're hired by these people to cause more racial division, cause more separation.
I mean, when I heard there was a Klansman in Ferguson, my first thing was like, that's a plan, because these the liberal media does, and they're typically white, middle-aged males. They do such a great job of riling up minority communities, whether it be Mexicans or blacks. And it'd be interesting to see how many Mexicans or blacks do their kids go to school with. How many Mexicans or blacks do they live by? How many Mexican or blacks, are they friends with? And I'm not saying people at their level, the people that are probably disadvantaged, and I would say it's probably next to zero. A lot of as Chris Jericho would say, a lot of hypocrites and parasites.
They're liberal hipster scum, and they need to get their jaws shattered. Seriously, they're the worst humans walking this fucking earth, some of these liberals. And they love it. They love when things like this happen, because now they can carry out their agenda, or what they want to do. You know what I'm trying to say?
Oh,
rioting. Even the rioting and what is that doing? Those people are scum. They're fucking dirt. Okay? How are you honoring the death of Michael Brown by taking 10 pairs of fucking Jordans and a fucking a bottle of fucking Old English? You know what I'm saying? It's complete mayhem. And I just can't feel. Like I said, I feel bad for the boy. There's no coming back from death. You know what I'm saying? But the black community as a whole, okay, they need to stop letting the media wind them up, and they also need to change the culture. And even me, like I said, I listen to rap music, so I'm being a hypocrite in a way. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're outraged about something, but yet you celebrate, you recite the lyrics of black men getting killed in rap lyrics all the time. All the time. That's why when I see a fucking rapper on Twitter complaining about the death of somebody, shut the fuck up. You murdered 30 fucking black dudes in your song the other day. And you're fucking upset? You promote the poison, too. You're promoting... we have to be outraged about everything. This selective outrage is liberal propaganda. It's fucking garbage. You know what I'm saying? And it's just complete chaos. It really is.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I'm on board with you there, man. I've kind of checked out of mainstream politics. I used to be kind of a mainline Republican and just kind of got disillusioned with that towards the end of the Bush years, and now I'm more of a libertarian and just try to keep my eyes open. But I will say, I think the Democrats will drive you off the cliff 200 miles an hour. The Republicans will drive you off the cliff 150 miles an hour. So two wings of the same bird.
Yeah, like I said, man, I agree with you 100%. You gotta be careful, man, and like I said, that's why I feel so much at peace now that I found what I was looking for, and Jesus Christ said He's the way, the truth, and the life in John 14:6, and I see things for what they are so much more clearly now. Even when you have these groups like Anonymous, that's another plant. Okay, it's another Illuminati plant. Okay, their catchphrase is "We are Legion." Okay, if you read the Bible, when Jesus Christ confronts a man who's possessed by a demon, and he asks the demon, "What's his name?" He says, "We are Legion." Okay, and these people, Anonymous, it's funny because they could hack into everything. You know what I mean? They can hack into your personal account, your bank account, websites, news stations. To me, that sounds like Big Brother-ish to me. It sounds a bit like an all-seeing eye, the way they can just get into everything. They can watch and see everything. So I believe that that's another plan, just like the KKK, the New Black Panther Party, Anonymous. It's all a sick fucking game, and it's all going to come crashing down one day. It really is. It's all going to come crashing down, and in the meantime, people need to wake the fuck up and change their ways and look in the mirror at themselves and how we can fix things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a good message. It's got to start within. It's got to start. Movements don't start in mass; they start on an individual level. Try to influence your friends. Try to influence your family members. Try to awake people that have become apathetic, to the whole system.
Absolutely, and change the culture. Change the culture.
Yeah.
The top 5 rap songs that are played on the radio right now all talk about murdering people's families, killing people, drug use, all kinds of shit. It's a form of MK Ultra as well. I know we're going a little off topic, from the Ferguson thing, but it all plays into it. It all plays into it, and it's a sick game. And people just gotta, like I said, man, help each other and look at themselves in the mirror. And if we're gonna be outraged, because be outraged about everything.
Sure.
Okay, don't look at it like.
But, to me, the biggest.
Hello.
You still there, Lane?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Hey, I think. Let's see. Hey, Adam, are you there?
Yes, I am. Certainly.
Okay. Yeah. I guess we can just edit that later. But I guess what I was gonna say. Yeah, Ferguson to me definitely stinks to the high heavens of a psyop, because who would announce this decision, this grand jury decision, at night? It just boggles. It just doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't you announce it at like 7 a.m. and maybe all these alleged brave protesters wouldn't be burning down minority-owned businesses and putting people out of jobs? I mean, that's just the most basic thing. Like, why'd you do it in the dead of night?
It's definitely to me, it's definitely a stage thing. And I think I was watching CNN. I don't know if you've seen it. When one of the reporters is walking up the street, somebody comes into the camera and goes, "This is all smoke and mirrors," and the fucking reporter pushed them out of the way. So it's like something's fucking fishy, man. And like I said, when you read the Bible, the Bible tells you a lot of these things. And if you read 2 Corinthians 4:4, it says Satan is the ruler of this world, corrupting everything. So it's like the answers are there. You know what I mean? And you can see it. If you're a sharp person, and you know you're not a person that gets irrational. You're a logical thinker, and you know you don't get blinded by the emotion. You can see things more clearly. And you know, a person like you're a very knowledgeable, smart person. You're very rational, and you can see it too. It's a sick game that's being played. But you know, I'm on point, and the only thing I could do is try to spread the word as much as I could and help people. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, that's awesome, and, you know, that's why I wanted you on this. Well, I mean, number one, you know, years ago, you were one of the guys who, you know, told people about me, and there was nothing in it for you. You didn't have to do it. So, you know, if nothing else, I'm a loyal guy, and so when I first got this idea...
Well, let me tell you something right now. I don't mean to cut you off. The reason why I did it is when I first met you, you had my back with the whole Melky Kawa situation. Remember, it was only me and you, and there was like 30 of them. And you stood by my side. You stood by my side, and even you got into a tussle with somebody, some juiced up, I don't know, some juiced up monkey that you wrestled with. You know what I mean? And you had my back, and I said, you know, this is my boy, man. You're a cool guy, and you know, we broke bread. We had beers together. We had a couple dinners together. We went to a fucking titty bar together. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know,
that was a good one.
We went to the Bada Bing. We went to the Bada Bing. You know,
yeah.
I had fun with you. You're my boy. I consider you a friend of mine, and I'm glad. And I think you deserve everything you got going because you know you built the brand for yourself. You built, and all these fucking jerk job, tic tac dick MMA journalists like fucking what's those jerk jobs? I don't even know their fucking names. What's that jerk job in Chicago? You know who I'm talking about. The Dungeons and Dragons MMA club. They had a fucking bunch of nerds.
Mike Fagan?
Yeah, Mike Fagan. He's what a real fucking mud. And if I ever see Mike Fagan in real life, I'm putting him to sleep. Quick.
John Spector.
What's that other fucking fat fuck that he's friends with the beard? I forget all these jerk jobs' names. Matt Sloth. All these fucking mutts. Matt Sloth was fucking shaking my hand asking for an autograph when he seen me. Then he's on Twitter talking shit about me with the fucking Magic the Gathering MMA club. Fuck you. I don't know if you're friends with any of these guys now, but I'm sorry, I don't like them. You know?
Roth,
another jerk job. Derek Subbotecki. Yeah, Derek Suckadicky. That's his fucking name. Another fucking mutt. These guys, you know what? These guys, you get me riled up. Let me calm down.
Yeah, I mean, Roth. I like him. I get along with him. But the other guys, I just call them collectively the.
Well, let me tell you something. You know, Roth is a two-faced fucking phony. Okay, because when he was in fucking. You were there with me.
I was there. I was there. I thought you guys were getting along.
When he met me, he had beads of sweat coming down the side of his head. His hand was shaking when he wanted to shake my hand. You know what I'm saying? And then on Twitter, he wants to badmouth me with these fucking Yu-Gi-Oh card playing fucking weirdos. You know what I'm saying? Get the fuck out. I don't like that two-faced shit. So, you know, fuck Matt Sloth and fuck all those fucking dweebs.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. A lot of those guys, they get so upset if you have any opinion that is contrary to their,
you want to know why? You want to know why they hate on guys like me and you? Because we separated ourselves from the pack. We have character. We have charisma. We have aura. We have machismo. They're fucking dweebs, bro. They're dweebs, and they can't do it. Okay? They play the game like they're smart. Oh, we're smart. You're a bunch of fucking mutts. You haven't been near a vagina since you came out of your mother's. Understand that. So fuck those guys.
I hear you, man. The copy and paste mafia. Fuck them. Well,
exactly.
Hey, thanks for taking the time, man. It went longer, and I'm sure we could talk about this shit for hours. But it'd be great to have you on. A reoccurring guest. We'll talk some fights, talk some shit that's a lot more important than that. But thanks for taking the time, and let's hang out soon, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't do strip clubs no more. You know, now that I follow,
any bar will do.
We could do something else. We could do something else. I'll buy you a beer. We'll go to a bar. We'll have fun. But definitely, we got to link up again. I'm very honored to be on your first show. Especially with Chael Sonnen and Alistair Overeem. I really, really think that you got something going. I think you could go a long way, man. You go a long way because you have it inside you to do big things. And I always got your back. And anybody, when you had my back against Melky Kawa, I always have your back against any of these fucking jerk job MMA managers that are talking shit to you. Anybody that has a problem, has a problem with me. Because you were there for me, so I'm there for you. So that mutt that was talking shit to you from what was the name of his I don't know if you squashed the beef. I don't know.
No, he's Felice Herrig's manager.
Yeah, Felice Herrig looks like a fucking bulldog. Okay, was it Sucker Punch? Sucker Punch.
Yeah, Sucker Punch. Yeah, he thought he was being a badass because he put DeMarcus Johnson on my ass, and I'm like, hey, dude, the same DeMarcus Johnson that fired you 3 years ago because of your odd relationship with Felice Herrig, that guy is sticking up for you. He fired you already.
Exactly, and I tell you right now, his company's Sucker Punch, but except I'm not going to sucker punch him. I'm going to punch him right in his face, standing right in front of him, if he tries to start some shit with us. All right, so, Brian, thank you so much for having me on your show, man. Like I said, I'm honored, and I think things are coming your way, bro, and, good luck with everything, man.
Thank you, brother. God bless you. Be good.
God bless, brother.
All right, man. Later.
Later.
We got one more guest for you on this week's episode of the FRB Show. He is the former K1 kickboxing world champion, the Strike Force champion. His name is Alistair Overeem. What's going on, man?
Yo, Brian. Yeah, all is good, man. I'm in Albuquerque right now. I'm actually finishing out my training camp for December 13th. Fighting Stefan Struve. One more week to go.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that camp. I know it's your second camp out there in Albuquerque, and it just seems like such a positive vibe just by seeing your Instagram pictures and some of your tweets, and you're just getting along great with the guys. Is that the case?
Yep. Yeah. No, that is the case. I mean, it's a good fit. It's a very positive fit. There's no BS. It's just all good. And I'm learning. The focus is on that, development, learning, training. And I really genuinely like the rest of the team. It's just very positive environment. And for me, that works best. I mean, everybody has their own thing. Respect to that. But for me, the positive thing works best.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, you're a positive person from what I know of you. And, you got Stefan Struve coming up, like you said, in Phoenix, December 13th. He's 7 feet tall. He's got the same wingspan as Jon Jones, whom you've been spending a lot of time with in Albuquerque. He's 9-4 in the UFC. He is coming off almost a 2-year layoff. So, he's got a lot of question marks next to his names. What are your general thoughts about Stefan Struve?
Yeah, I know him from Holland. I don't know him well. We never trained together. But he's he's a young and upcoming fighter. He's very hungry. He showed some great heart in some of the fights that he had. And other than that, of course, there's a respect. He's Dutch, but for me, it doesn't matter. For me, it's a fight. I'm coming well prepared into this fight. And, I actually was very well prepared for the last fight. It's very unfortunate that it ended early. But everything was good in my last fight. Everything went well. The preparation, my shape, my physique, my cardio, everything was good. Unfortunately, it didn't show. Got ended before it got.
Yeah, in the heavyweight bouts, it's just one punch, or it can change the entire course of the fight. It doesn't even matter sometimes. It's not like the flyweights, right? That these guys can tee off on each other for 3 rounds, and there's not even one knockdown. You know, when you get the big guys are throwing the heavy lumber, one of you guys is probably going down pretty quick.
Yeah, well, I'd never lost in a fashion like that before. So, you know, everything can and does happen under the guise of. You know, I've been training now for 21 years, competing for 17, 18 years. So, yeah, if you're competing that long, that should also be part of it, right? And I guess it did.
Yeah, that's amazing. Competing for 17 years because you're still just 34 years old, which you know, guys are competing to 40 and beyond. That's amazing. You've been around that long, but you know, just you know, since you came to the UFC, you had that huge fight with Brock Lesnar, just totally murdered him, retired him, sent him back to the WWE. And then you had those two fights against Bigfoot and Travis Brown, and I think you won about 99% of all of the time in those fights. Yeah, you dominated both of them. So at Jackson's, what coaches are you're working with mostly? Is it John and Greg Jackson? Is there anybody else that you're working with there?
Well, I'm working with Brandon and Roberto Tusa, and then Cody East, and then there's this guy Leo. I don't know what his last name is, but he's a tall Russian kid. So yeah, and just enjoying the good vibe there. I mean, I get coached by a lot of lighter weights too, coming with wrestling tips and small stuff. It's just a good vibe, good energy.
Sure. And you were saying that the last fight against Rothwell, you know, when two big guys are throwing heavy lumber at each other, you know, one of them's going to go down, but you know, you had said 9 out of 10 times you would beat Ben Rothwell, and is that's something that you believe?
Yeah, it is. That's my honest opinion. That's what I think. 9 out of 10 times he would fight again. I think I would get him every time. I think that he did get lucky. I even think that if the fight would not have lasted 5 more minutes. But you know, I lost the fight. What can I say? There's no use to talk about it any longer. He won the fight. Congratulations. Yeah, now we're moving on towards the next one. And you know, I hope that we're gonna fight again sometime, because then I can put my words, my sentence into effect. But until that time, it has no use to talk about it anymore. Yeah,
I think a rematch would be great because he's been barking back at you. I don't know. You know, I know you like to shy away from you know, not be too confrontational, but he's been you know, saying some things back at you. So I think there's some good money for you guys in a rematch at some point down the line.
Yeah, but first, Stephen Struve. You know, we need to focus on person first. But yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah, and Struve, you know, I was really surprised to see. You know, he's 9-4 in the UFC, and you know, he's lost to some pretty tough guys. You know, like Roy Nelson and Travis Brown, Mark Hunt, beat up Stipe Miocic, who's a very good fighter. So I was like, oh wow, I didn't know he was this good. And you know, coming off that 2-year layoff, he was supposed to fight Mitrione on the July 4th card, and then he had an elevated heart rate, and he had some history of some heart issues. So I guess he's okay now because you know he's going to fight you. But what are some of the things you're looking at with him? Because he's a guy who doesn't use his length. He doesn't work from the outside. He's a guy that likes to stay in the pocket, and it really, in my opinion, works against him. Have you noticed that?
Well, yeah, he's very tall, but he fights a little bit different. But we do have to keep you know, we do have to remind ourselves that he's been laying off for 2 years, so he's been developing for 2 years. I expect to see a little bit of a different fighter. But again, you know, he's aggressive, he's young, he's up and coming. on the other hand, he also took a lot of hard blows from a lot of hard, Roy Nelson, Mark Hunt knocked him out bad. It also appears that he takes a lot of damage anyway. Like in the Stoichnyk's fight, he took a lot of damage. And I'm not sure if that is the good strategy to have, though. Take that much damage.
Yeah. Yeah, and, if he's thinking that you're going to knock him down and then you're going to go in his guard and fall into a trap, I think he's messing around with the wrong guy, because you didn't seem to have any problems with Verdum's guard.
No, Verdum's guard we prepared very well for. On Sterkland's guard, we're also preparing on that. So I'm just going to make sure I'm ready wherever.
Sure. Now, yeah. I mean, I know things in the UFC, they haven't gone the way that I thought they were going to go, but I thought you dominated Travis Brown. The fight should have been stopped. That was in Boston. The fight against Bigfoot, you dominated that guy up until whatever happened at the end, and then of course you dominated Frank Mir, and the Rothwell fight didn't go the way you wanted it to, but so maybe you don't have as many W's as you'd like, but I think your UFC run has been pretty good. You beat up a lot of guys,
and I'm not done yet. I still have a couple of names on my list.
Now, are you one of these guys that'll look past a guy and say, "Hey, I want this guy next," or you don't think about that until you take care of Stefan Struve?
No, I don't think we should go that route. People also don't expect that from me. I think we need to just focus on Stefan. And also the thing is, you lost your last fight, shut that up, go to the gym, train, win the next fight, and then come with words or with talk. And that's exactly what I'm planning to do. Not too much talk. We'll come back to your podcast after the next up.
Yeah, for sure, man.
And then we'll challenge whoever, whatnot.
Right. Now, the thing that the fans love, and I really like what you did, and I think more people need to invest back into themselves, because you are a commodity. You're an entertainer, as well as a professional athlete. But the Ream documentary by that Eldar Gross does for you, very, very skilled video guy. I think he edits too, Alistair?
Yeah, he films, he edits, he does the whole thing. He's great at what he does. He's a talent. Of course, I also have my own input, but I generally leave him, I give him freedom to do what he wants, because that just works best. He's good at what he does, so I'm not a movie, I might have some ideas, but I like creative people that have the freedom, because then the most awesome things come out, and he delivers. I mean, everybody who watches one episode watches the whole thing, and then they're a fan, it appears to be. So it's been a great cooperation, and Elder's also become a great friend.
Sure. So when is the next episode coming out?
Well, that is always a little bit a mystery, because it depends a little bit. Sometimes we release a lot of episodes. Sometimes we scale back to bigger episodes and release less frequent. It depends a little bit. But if things become a little bit more interesting, more will be released. This fight with Stefan Struve, looking at all the other achievements, and that's not to take away from Stefan, because he's a very dangerous fighter. But this fight is not that interesting, apart from it being two Dutch fighters. But if let's say if it will be a Dos Santos or another title run or something in that magnitude, then we would definitely pick up on episodes.
Yeah, I've noticed that, because I was trying to do some research, and I was trying to see if you or Stefan had done some other interviews, and I really didn't see anything. The last thing from Stefan I saw was for the Mitrione fight, and I think you had done one interview for an Australian submission radio podcast, I think. So there hasn't been much talk.
No, but it's also not necessary, I think. Like I said, it's time to just hit the gym and get that W. And of course, in the meantime, we're keeping our eyes open on what we're doing. He's done a great job with Mark Hunt. We keep an eye on the competition, but yeah, there's nothing to say.
Yeah.
Except I'm going back to the gym. I'm going to train hard.
Sure. Do you feel a little bit more pressure coming into this one than some of the other ones? Is this a do or die as far as the UFC goes, or?
There's always pressure. There's always pressure, and to be honest, it doesn't really bother me. Usually under pressure, I do very good. Yeah, and the thing is, I just don't focus on that too much. Oh, pressure. There's always pressure. People always expect you to do good. When like I said, and yeah, it's either gonna go well or it's not gonna go well, or you're gonna have the middle ground, or it's gonna go terrible, like the last fight. No injuries, but you lose in like a very short fashion. So it's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
But I focus on the things that I do have control about, and that is training, my food, my nutrition, the people that I surround myself with, and I'm very satisfied with that part. With the actual work that I can do in a fight. Anything can happen in a fight.
Yeah, you're right. And, you had a good attitude. I don't know after what fight it was. They asked you, well, what are you going to do? He's like, well, you said something, I'm paraphrasing, well, I'm going to go back into the gym and continue fighting because fighters fight. And I thought
like some people, it's time to retire. And listen, if I had retired like 10 years ago because I had a loss back then, or 2 losses, or I think 2006, I had 3 consecutive losses in Pride. I lost to, 3 losses, doesn't matter who. And,
Shogun, Arona, Little Knot.
Yeah, and if I would have quit back then, how boring would it be? Like, I would have missed out of all these other great fights I had after. So, of course, we're not going to quit. We keep going. We keep going until my body stops functioning, and then we might think about stopping.
Yeah, and then I'm sure you'll find something else to do. Obviously, you're a smart businessman. I see some of the people that you surround yourself. Some of your friends from childhood are still some of your biggest supporters. And come out to see us. So that really tells you, a lot about you and the loyalty that people show to you.
Yeah, I always have a lot of good friends flying from all over the world to see me fight. Very loyal people, from back home Holland, but actually, honestly, from everywhere they fly in. And if I like somebody and somebody likes me, I like to maintain that relationship. Keep good people around. There's plenty of bad people out there, and I really appreciate people that are good to me.
Yeah,
and I should.
Yeah, for sure. And also with you changed camps and you also changed management. You have the same manager now as Jon Jones, Malky Kawa. And just interested to hear your thoughts so far, about 5 or 6 months into the business relationship with Malky.
Well, I like him as a person. He's just honest, no bullshit. And that is something I can respect. I don't like people selling me stuff all the time, telling me stories just to please me. I don't like, you could actually say I don't like naysayers. I like people who are real with me. Even though it's bad news, just be real, because then I know what's up. Then I can count on you. Then I can communicate with you. And Malky has done just that. He's not going to sell me stories. He's just being real.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I communicate with him, here and there, and he's just a stand-up guy. He's a straight shooter, and like you said, yeah, even if it's not the best news, he's going to tell you. And I think that the relationship that he's had with Jon Jones says a lot about him, because Jon's getting pulled in so many different directions. He's got a William Morris agency, and there's probably how many managers would like to manage this guy? Every guy in the sport, right? But he's
Jon Jones, crazy. Everybody's pulling at him, and he's holding his ground. I mean, and he's had the long-term relationship now with with Malky. So indeed, that does indeed say something.
Yeah, and I would Jon Jones. That reminds me of something. I saw something in your last fight, and you kind of had a little bit of a Jon Jones look to you, like you were changing up, maybe like your Dutch kickboxing style. You were becoming a little bit more like Jon, like switching stances a little and throwing those jabs with your legs a little bit more. Was that something inspired from Jon?
Well, Dutch kickboxing is outdated anyway. It's just different. It's different anyway than MMA, but it's now also outdated. If I look at the Dutch kickboxing, and I'm not going to mention the lightweights because the lightweights are a different thing, but the heavyweights, it's outdated. Their movements, I would say that MMA heavyweights are better strikers than Dutch kickboxing heavyweights.
So, I mean, I don't know that much about kickboxing, but is the Dutch kickboxing style go as hard as you can, at least for heavyweights, just go as hard as you can and try to knock the guy out as quickly as possible? Is that kind of the goal?
The movement, the distance is different. They're not really using any of the spinning kicks, spinning elbows, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
The clinch, they can't clinch. So there is no clinch, and if they clinch, they're just holding each other. The ring is smaller, so that obviously affects the movement. So it's just different. And MMA, UFC is just way more evolved. There's just way more techniques, stuff to learn.
Yeah, and that's something that I don't think a lot of people realize. That you can wrestle, you can grapple. You're not just your standard kickboxer from Holland.
No, I've been doing it for 21 years now, so I can wrestle, I can grapple. But the whole important notion is you got to keep improving, keep working on everything. Because if you stop doing something, and that's why it's so important not to have naysayers around, because if you have only people that are telling you how great you are, you're not improving. So you need to have critical people around you, creative people, to keep stimulating you. To get better.
Yeah. And, talking about your training, I know there's been some allegations. Oh, Alistair is a diva. He only cares about Alistair. And I'm like, well, I don't know that guy. I never act, I'm nobody important. He don't treat me like that. And you're in Albuquerque. And from what I understand, you're living at a very modest hotel, and you have a small little car that you rent, whatever, and you're there.
Yeah, that was. So you got a lot of information there, Brian. A lot of information. Now, actually, the car, I got a little bit bigger car now.
Okay.
A very big car now, actually, but
yeah.
But people like to exaggerate, and why do they do that? I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
haven't you noticed?
I think people, from your previous camp, they took one thing and just blew it up when really, when you went there, it was going to be your camp within their venue. It wasn't going to be you blending in with the rest of the guys in the room. You brought your own guys, from what I remember, and that was the deal.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. So,
yeah, but I can tell you something. The previous camp, I'm not going to name any names, but I don't care about them. I'm happy it's a thing of the past. And for me, I don't have to see them, hear them, talk about them ever again in my life. That's how I feel about them.
Yeah, and I know
that's keeping things civilized and gentlemanlike.
Right. Yeah, which you always are. And the only reason I know that's a sore subject, and the only reason I brought it up was I wanted the people to know that you're not this demanding diva, and you went out to Albuquerque, New Mexico. Even though you live in South Florida, beautiful South Florida, South Beach. You have a very beautiful daughter.
I live beachfront, so I go out my backyard. I'm on the beach. I left that behind to come to Albuquerque. And you know what? I like Albuquerque. People are super friendly, open. There's good restaurants here. Not as good as Miami, not as international, but it's good enough. I like the team to better myself, and it's going to come out. I feel.
And it seems like you're very well liked there. I was talking to because Donald Cerrone went out and stayed with Chael Sonnen for a weekend, and so they called me up and on FaceTime or whatever. We were just talking, and Cerrone's like, yeah, he's a cool guy. I like being around him.
Yeah,
talking about you, of course.
And I think everybody here was very critical at the beginning, because of some rumors being spread around by some people. So, I definitely did get some looks in the beginning. But, I'm just being myself, being relaxed, not pushing anything, not pretending to be something else. And then in time, people see how you are, and then they become a little bit more open, and and it's just relaxed.
Yeah, best of luck on the 13th, and I know you have a really tight schedule, heading up to the fight. So, thank you for taking the time to come on here. It's the first episode, so when I was thinking about the first episode, I was like, well, I got to get Chael on there. Bloodstain Lane's been on, another ally of yours. He was very honored.
How's that been? Is he still involved? Is he still watching MMA? Still following? Of course he is, but
not as much. Not as much. He's become a born again Christian.
Serious?
Yeah, I'm serious. So now he quotes scripture and
all people. What happened?
Well, we talked about it on the podcast. He said he was getting a lot of bad thoughts, and he thought Satan was conspiring against him. And he prayed. He prayed.
He must have been pranking you. He must have been pranking you.
I think you know what?
Hey, that thought did not cross your mind, did it?
but Alistair, I checked with Malky. Malky knows him better than me, and he's like, no, that's real, man. He doesn't even talk about porn anymore. Remember, he used to be always talking about it. Like online and stuff. I mean, he doesn't talk about that. He's a different guy. But when you came to Strikeforce, he was one of your biggest supporters, and he still has some great things to say about you.
Funny how life goes, huh? Very unpredictable. Very unpredictable.
Exactly, man. All right, dude. Hey, again, thanks again. Best of luck against Struve. I think you're going to knock this guy out. And I hope to be there. I got to be in Ohio for work, so if I can hop a plane in from Ohio to Phoenix.
Come back. You're only like an hour and a half away.
Yeah, that'd be.
Well, let me know. Big honor to be among the first on your show, and don't hesitate to call me to get me back on it. I'll immediately say yes.
Awesome. You're the man. Have a good night, brother.
All right. Thanks, man. Ciao.
Take care.